Good afternoon, everyone. It's time for a live build, and it's not just any live build, I have to say. This was a special one for those of you watching today, because we're actually going to go step by step and show you how to build a PC from step one all the way to the end, or at least physically building, because there's a couple more steps after that, but we'll talk about that anyways. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lewis. I'm your host. Joining me is PJ, our builder. As you can see on the screen, we have all these parts on board. PJ, feel free to say hi to the people to make sure your mic is good to go. We gave him some new batteries, so...
Hello.
Hello, coming in loud and clear. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a very special live build put together by the team over at Corsair, and specifically for their student program, student ambassador program, and whatnot. What was I gonna do? Let's talk about the specs first, and then I'm gonna talk about all the other fun stuff that we got, because I'm so used to like doing the specs first. It's like a go-to thing. It's just natural. So let's talk about the specs really quick. For those of you that have no idea what I'm doing here, we're gonna talk about the specs first. But for those of you that do know why I'm here, we'll get to that. So we're gonna be building with a Neuron desktop today, the Origin PC Neuron to be precise. So you can't get this case anywhere else. The power supply, as known as PSU, is the Corsair RM850X 80 Plus Gold power supply. The motherboard is an ASUS Prime B550MA motherboard. The CPU cooler is a Corsair iQ H100i RGB Pro XT cooler, so that is a liquid cooler. It's called all-in-one, or that's what we call it here internally. So you don't have to put any liquid into it. The liquid's already inside the system, or the unit, I should say. The CPU for today's build is the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X, coming at 3.8 gigahertz per core, which there are actually 6 cores on this CPU, and up to 4.4 gigahertz max boost. We'll talk about max boost later on the stream. The GPU, also known as a graphics card, is the ASUS ROG AMD Radeon RX 5500 XT, featuring 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So it's a pretty capable GPU. You can play pretty much every game available today. And I think it's perfect for esports games. So if you like Valorant, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, it's perfect for that. The RAM for the RAM for this system is at 16 gigabytes of 3000 megahertz DDR4 Corsair Vengeance. It's a decent kit, coming with 2 sticks for dual channel power. So you're probably wondering, like, why would I go with 2 sticks versus 1 stick? But we'll get to that too. The fans for this system, we're using Corsair SP120 RGB Pro fans with RGB lighting, because you can't get enough of that. PJ, do you love the RGB lighting?
I love RGB lighting. I love it so much.
I sense some sarcasm, but it does make the case.
Cat.
It does make the case look a little spiffy, I might add.
It does. It's a little more time consuming when you have to do the wiring, but other than that, once you get the system powered on, it's completely satisfying.
Absolutely. The OS SSD, so I'm really specific about this because there's multiple storage options you can add to your PC, but we're going to refer to this as the operating system SSD, is a 1TB Corsair Force Series MP600 NVMe M.2 SSD. Now, there's something really special about this SSD with this specific build, but I'll get to that later on. And the OS, we're going with Windows 10. No Linux here, although you're more than welcome to add it. We won't stop you. I will note here for those of you, or for Origin PC fans, that some of the parts featured on this stream are not available on OriginPC.com. As mentioned earlier, this is a special workshop that we're running because okay, so a little backstory here. I gotta give you guys the backstory because you're probably wondering, what are we doing here? This isn't for anyone in particular, but we're doing this to help out the Corsair team, because normally they would host this workshop in person. But due to the pandemic, we're going to be running this virtually and helping you guys walk step by step on building the PC. PJ's currently grabbing some extra components, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, he is. All right, so before we get started, PJ's going to be doing some stuff for there. We're going to jump over and talk about that student ambassador program. Some of you are already part of it. For those of you that have no idea what I'm talking about, we're going to jump to that and showcase that. Oh, no, my screen. If I jump to the screen right now, it would show you guys all the behind the scenes stuff, and I do not want that. Give me a quick second here. Right monitor. We do not want the right monitor, because if I showed you guys the right monitor, you'd see all the audio settings and all that other fun stuff, which we are not going to do. This is what I want to show you guys. So you can actually visit this website at Corsair's own website. This is the Corsair student program. They host an incredible amount of events, actually virtually as well. I mean, given the current situation, you can, it's kind of important you can do that virtually. Including this one, which we're running right now. They also run on-campus events. Sorry about that little quick transition there. And hackathons. Again, you can find more information at corsair.com/student, and you can also join their Discord channel at discord.gg/Corsair. A lot of cool information. Again, if you're around this age range, correct me if I'm wrong, Eugenia, in chat. Let me know what the proper age range is before I start saying things, and then people that are underage are signing up. Just give me the proper age range, and I'll be more than happy to talk about that. Any student, any age, student of life too. So no matter what, just sign up. Go check it out. Corsair.com/student. All right.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Let's go ahead and pull up that CPU. Bring it up to the camera.
You got it. Let's take a seat. I'm actually sitting down for this build today.
All right, so we're going to give a couple shout-outs here specifically to a couple components. You'll see the majority of the parts of this build are Corsair, so you'll probably hear me saying Corsair a bunch. But the other components that are not Corsair-related are pretty critical. But go ahead and show up the box to the camera, what CPU we're using. So we're using the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X, an incredible CPU. Again, this has 6 cores. Don't show the serial number now. It's top secret information, man. You can't, if you guys rewind and see it, we'll see.
Oh, well.
Again, special shout out to our friends over at AMD for supplying this very, very intuitive CPU. Perfect for game or a gaming build, which this system very much is. Actually, let me jump over to AMD's website. You guys can easily learn more about the AMD Ryzen 3600X on AMD's Ryzen website. Let me do a quick jump over there to see if there's anything that I should mention to you guys. I'm just gonna make a quick jump over so you can learn more about that AMD Ryzen goodness. So one of the highlights of the AMD Ryzen processors is that they have incredibly high core counts. For today's build, we're using the Ryzen 5, which is, you can see it down here, and it features 6 cores. So we can go click and learn more. They also have different kinds of processors, but we'll get to that later. So this CPU is excellent for gaming, streaming, VR, and professional work. Again, you can learn more on AMD's website. You just look up AMD.com and look up the Ryzen processors. Next up, PJ, we got to give some love to our friends over at ASUS. We got 2 ASUS parts, specifically the motherboard. Go ahead and show that up there. Is that dust?
Well, it's a brand new motherboard.
Open it up. So this motherboard complements the CPU. And again, you need to get a specific kind of motherboard to go with the CPU. So in this case, we're using the B55, or I can't think. I'm thinking about the GPU. 550. I'm speaking too fast.
B550M.
That is correct. And go ahead and show, I want you to show the socket first.
Sure thing. We need that too.
So again, shout out to our friends at ASUS. Quick question, PJ. Is this in, this is in, not an ITX. This is an ATX board, right?
This is the micro ATX.
Yeah, that was a trick question. Trick question. I got you there. Almost got you there.
Forgive me, even I get confused.
It's a micro ATX board for those of you at home keeping track. And also, go ahead and show off the box of the GPU. You don't have to take it out.
Oh, yes.
So this is the ROG Strix. ROG Strix is ASUS's gaming line with the AMD Radeon 5500 XT graphics card. Again, we don't offer that on our site at originpc.com, but you can always add that to your own build wherever you may be. So that about wraps up our special shout outs for that. And a quick brief about us at Origin PC. We do all these live builds all the time, but again, this is a special one focused on building PC from nothing to something. You can find us at originpc.com. Follow us on all the social medias. And yeah, glad you're here. All right, we already talked about the specs. We're going to put them up on the board one more time. I want you to take a screen cap of these specs, by the way, for those of you keeping track at home. I will add them to the bottom bar later on the stream when I'm taking questions as we're building. But we're going to take a screen cap of that because we're going to be referring to each part. You'll notice I also marked the parts as well. So you'll see that I mentioned the case, the PSU, CPU cooler, CPU, etc. So when I mention something, like if I say the OS or if I say the CPU cooler, you'll know what I'm talking about. Specifically what part I'm talking about. All right, got your screen cap? You cool? Cool.
Cool. I'm cool too.
All right, PJ, before you start doing stuff, I want you to angle the camera down and explain what you're about to do.
Yes.
Because you have the motherboard out. You have the CPU out.
I do have a tendency start.
Yeah, I'm gonna slow you down here
extremely fast.
Yeah, so I'm gonna slow PJ down because normally when we do these live builds, he's off to the races and we're gone. We're like at this point, PJ's already put the RAM, the CPU, the SSD, and we're gone. But we're gonna slow it down here today.
Pretty much.
And give you guys a step by step.
You're right. Okay.
Don't worry.
All
We're
right.
good.
So usually the first thing that I would do when I start building the system is I start assessing all the parts. I'll take everything out of the boxes. I want to make sure that there's no damage to anything at first. Once we got the motherboard out, in this case, I will start adding all the components to it. So I will start with the M.2, which is going to be the operating system drive, the OS, which is the Corsair MP600.
Mm-hmm.
This is the 1 terabyte. This is the Gen 4 as well.
Which is very special. We'll get to that when we add this SSD to the board.
The other thing I would do too is add the memory. We're using Corsair Vengeance LPX. This is 2x8, 16 gig at 3000 megahertz.
And there's no RGB on that, by the way.
No RGB on this. Still performs exactly the same. There's no difference. It just doesn't have the lighting. In this case, this is more of a purpose-built, let's get down to business gaming PC, so which is pretty cool. I'll add all the components first. Since we're using an AIO cooler, we need to remove this bracket as well. This is only held on if we're using the Corsair, not the Corsair, the AMD cooler that comes with the CPU, but we're not. We're using the iQ H100i. So what we'll do is go ahead and get started and start installing all these things. Yes, Lewis is 100% correct. Usually I would have been off to the races and I would have had all this knocked out.
All right, so explain how you're putting that CPU on the board, because on motherboards, it's going to be tricky to show on the camera.
Yeah. Well, let's do this. I can show on the CPU itself. If you look in this little corner over here, there's a little silver dot.
It's very, I don't know if you can see it.
Very difficult to see.
But there is a little dot.
On the older AMD chipsets, they used to have an actual arrow. It was much more easier to see, but they do mark it. So with that little dot that they leave there, you have to pinpoint that with the arrow that goes in the actual chipset itself. So in this case, it's over here on this corner.
So that you can actually see. You guys can actually see that on the stream.
Can you see that there? It's right over here in the corner.
I think there's a lot of like coloring and aesthetics on the board, so it's kind of tricky to see.
But there's a little arrow at the top left-hand corner. It's engraved in the actual
You can't
chipset.
miss it.
So what you want to do is you want to match that little gold dot with that arrow. And it's the only way it'll go in. It's pretty much keyed. You can't set it the other way. If it doesn't go in, the only two reasons why it wouldn't be going inside the socket is because A, you're not putting it in correctly, or unfortunately the CPU may have like a little bend in one of the pins at the bottom. So that could be corrected, or if you don't want to mess with it, you can always
RMA.
Return it and get one that doesn't have any damage.
All right, so let's say I don't know what I'm doing and I just put it in the wrong way. Would the CPU actually go inside?
No.
So that's how you'll know, by the way.
It's keyed. That's what I mean by keyed. It can only go in one way. Just like the Intel CPUs, it has those little indentions on the sides.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen those, it's keyed to only go in one way. You can't put an older generation chipset in. You can't put an even newer one, depending on the board you have. It's located in a certain spot and only works for certain CPUs.
Correct.
So the next thing we'll do, I'll add the memory.
Also, actually, let's rewind just a bit. You saw that little metal bar there. Can you show people how you did the metal bar?
What metal bar? Oh, this little guy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Normally, I'm so used to the metal bar, but we have to point it out.
Well, it's just kind of cool, too.
Show
if you ever have to remove the CPU for whatever reason, because once it's up, you can push it down, and then it'll lock in place. And if I open it back up, it's still locked in place up into this point. But if you hear this little, that's letting you know that the CPU is now unlocked. You can actually pop it out and remove it.
I hope you guys heard that little pop there.
That
It
was
wasn't a
pretty-
bad pop.
No,
It was
it's
a
not a
good
bad
pop.
pop. It's not a bad pop at all.
And the instruction manual included with the motherboard will actually show you how to properly do it, because some of the motherboards might be different
Correct.
in how they do their metal bar. But this
Correct.
one's pretty standard.
PC
there's some-
building, PC building 101, 100%. Even if you're doing this at home, if you have any questions or you're not sure about anything, always reference the user board.
Do not throw away your manuals.
No, don't.
No.
Do not.
Don't. No.
When we build our PCs, we always leave everything in the accessory box. So, I mean, we expect most of the time the customer won't have to open it up. But if for whatever reason they need to, if they need to get their recovery drive for whatever the system crashed, or if they have to reference something in the user manuals, they always have that accessory box that they can go back to and keep everything in.
All right, so the CPU is on the motherboard. We're good there.
So next thing we're going to
don't
do...
worry about the thermal paste and all that. We'll get to that when we apply the cooler.
Yes,
Because I
correct.
know sometimes people will mention about that. Because, all right, I'm going to pause here. PJ, you can feel free to chime in, but I'm going to mention the difference of cooling.
Sure, go ahead.
So for this build, there's multiple ways you can cool your processor. You can either go with a heatsink, you know, those big metal things that you can mount on your CPU and have it cooled that way. So fans will actually cool the heatsink because this flows out from the CPU.
in this case...
Yeah, there it is. Perfect.
Yeah, in this case, it's
Perfect
one of these.
demonstration.
This is the one that
Excellent.
actually comes with AMD.
So that's the
This is the
heatsink that
AMD cooler.
Yeah, that comes with the actual Ryzen processor. So
the
if you don't want to spend any money on coolers, it actually comes with one already in the box.
Correct. On the brackets, as I was mentioning on the motherboard itself, if you see the brackets here, that's what this would actually lock onto. But since we're not using this is going to be completely removed.
Yeah. And actually, thermal paste is included on the
Yes.
AMD
It's already pre-applied.
cooler too.
The same thing with the Corsair H100.
Yeah. And moving up from the heatsink, the all-in-one cooling unit right
Sorry
there,
about that.
the H100, that uses liquid, which doesn't take up as much space as that heatsink. It looks pretty nice. It's a space saving, I can say. And then finally, you have custom liquid cooling, so that requires actual tubes. They have to do that. That's more on the advanced side for PC builds. But today we're going to be using the all-in-one cooling unit. It's very popular nowadays. A couple years ago, that wasn't really a thing, but since, you know, Corsair and other companies, you know, they've introduced easy all-in-one coolers you can add to your system. It's pretty popular nowadays. So, and Eugenia mentions in chat that all Corsair coolers come with thermal paste already pre-applied, which we'll show that later. But CPU is good to go. Let's go ahead and add that RAM.
Okay. Again, we're using the Vengeance LPX. It's 16 gig, 2x8 gigahertz, or 2x8 gigabytes at 3000 megahertz. If you're not familiar with the memory itself, especially when I said 16 gigs, it depends on the memory set that you get. Sometimes 16 gigabytes of memory can come in 4 sticks of memory. And you can tell right over here on the top, it tells you. So 2 of these sticks, each one of these sticks is 8 gigabytes. And you multiply it by 2, you have 16 gigs.
All right, I'm going to pause you there, PJ. And I got a cool question for you, because I
Okay.
did some research on this one. Because, like, for me, historically, I've always used 2 sticks.
Sure.
But why would you go with 2 sticks of RAM versus 1 stick of RAM?
Why would I go with 2 sticks for better, more memory?
Yeah. Do you know?
That's no.
I got you stumped.
School me right there, please.
All right, so it's called dual channel.
Okay.
That's the perk, basically. When you have the 2 RAM sticks running in conjunction, you actually get a speed boost, which sounds crazy, right? But it's true. Your CPU actually benefits from the fact that you're using 2 sticks versus 1. You can use 1, but it's preferred to actually use 2 sticks, especially if you use it for gaming and other professional applications. What about 3 sticks? That's an odd number. It's not preferred, though. The reason you want to do 2, because actually, zoom into the motherboard. So you'll see that the motherboard is actually color-coded for the RAM sticks. So, because if you have that 3rd stick, it won't have that dual channel capability, because it's going to be running solo, basically. Because the other 2 sticks are going to be running in dual channel, but that solo 6 is going to chill there and just run perfectly, or just there. So what you want to do is run intervals of 2 or 4 for a normal motherboard. Motherboards can actually support up to 16, right?
This
like the
one?
crazy ones.
Oh
But-
yeah, no. This one here, I think the motherboard that I've used the biggest memory, I think I put 128 gigs of memory on it. This one here, I think you can put up to, if I'm not mistaken, I think they make 64 gigs of memory. Yeah, 16 by 4. You can put 64 gigs of memory maxed out on this system.
Yeah. Actually, let's also mention the point. Where do you put in the sticks of RAM?
The sticks of RAM on this motherboard, in this case, the 2 sticks are going to go in slots, what I like to call, you know, it's for easier. This is going to go in A2 and B2.
So the gray ones.
Yeah, if you're or the gray ones, somebody tell you both gray slots, or if it's easier for you to remember, just count them as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Somebody tells you you're going to put them in slots 2 and 4, you know that they're going to go in 1, 2, 3, and 4 right here. The motherboard, these are DDR4 memory, and just like the CPU, they're keyed. They can only go in one way.
Correct. Actually, can you put it up to the camera so you can show?
Sure. Let me take I always want to peel all the plastics off of everything. So you can see that it has a little mark right here.
That's like a little indent, and that's how you'll know you're putting it in the wrong way. Because if the indent doesn't match, that means it's like, no, you can't put it in.
You see how the motherboard has a key marked right here?
It's like right there, not quite in the center, but it's off center.
I won't even put the stick in all the way, but you can see if you can notice on the motherboard, you can see that they're not even matching.
Yeah, so it won't even go in, no matter how you try.
Don't
Don't push, by the way. If you
no, do not push.
Do not push. If you sense that the RAM is not going in, that's because you have it the wrong way.
Flip it around and set it in correctly. Once you see that it's sitting right on top of that slot, just get both of your fingers and push down.
And you'll hear a nice snap, not a bad snap. It's like a relieving snap. The speed of the RAM is 3,000 megahertz.
Correct.
Can you go higher? Absolutely. And actually, that's a little bit more complicated for this stream. But the RAM timing and the speeds and your CPU, what you select can also impact performance. But in this case, we're going, if I'm correct, I think, does the box say CL16? I'm assuming it's CL16, right?
The motherboard box?
No, the RAM.
For
the timing.
Hold on 1 second, correct. Give me a second and I will tell you.
Does it say it?
I do not see his... No, I don't see it.
No, it doesn't say. Okay. But if you go to Corsair's website and you check out the RAM, you'll see that it mentions something like CL. Depending on the CPU that you get, there's certain timings that are better than others. But that's just a quick look up to see what's best. I will say the price does differ, though. But normally, your RAM kit's perfectly fine. Don't stress too much about it. I think if you get 2,600 or up, you're good. So... I'm trying to think if there's anything else we want to talk about the RAM, because once you put it on the motherboard, that's it. You're good.
I would honestly say to think of just think of your computer when you're building it like a big Lego set with electronics.
That's a good way of putting it.
That's essentially what it is. As long as if someone were to get a user manual and literally put it together for you step by step on how to put the PC together, it's just like building Legos, man. It looks a lot more complicated than it actually is. And one of the things that I actually tell anybody who's building a PC the first time they're going to be building one is if you're handling the hardware, don't handle it. I'm not saying to manhandle the parts, but don't be scared to handle the parts. Because the more nervous you are, chances are you are going to bend something, break something, damage something, and you don't want that to happen. So be confident in what you're doing. Because the last thing you want when you're building a computer is shaky fingers or shaky hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't want to drop stuff.
Absolutely not. That's one of the last things you want to do. So always keep that in mind. Go into it knowing, hey, I'm going to get this thing knocked out and it's going to come out 100% awesome.
And also one final word for the RAM, I guess, before we continue moving on, is never put the RAM side by side. If you have 2 sticks, don't put them side by side, because then that completely messes up your dual channel.
Yeah, you don't have it running on the same channel.
So that's why it's color coded. Typically, the majority of motherboards are color coded in terms of their spacing. And actually, the motherboard manual will tell you which slots to put your RAM in. So... I think that's it for RAM.
Yep.
What's next?
Next would be the M.2.
That little M.2.
You ready to start going ahead on it? You said you had some special stuff to talk about this little guy?
Yes. So go ahead and show it on the camera. This is, so a long time ago, we used to use things called hard drives. We still do today. But this is the M.2 SSD using the M.2 format. So that's the physical size of it, because normally what I call SSDs are 2.5,
the actual
3.5.
physical size of it.
Yeah. So M.2 is that little... It's like a stick of bubble gum.
That's it.
A little big one, but you know.
This is your operating system.
So actually, normally M.2 drives do not come with a heatsink, but the Corsair 4 Series MP600 does come with a heatsink. Now, you're probably wondering why doesn't it need a heatsink? Because, you know, when you're using an SSD, it gets hot. So the heat just, you know, goes through the heatsink and lets the SSD cool off.
But I gotta jump in on that. Don't think just because other M.2s, if you've noticed them or have them, just because it doesn't have a heatsink on it, doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't need one.
Yeah.
Most motherboards, when they, when you get them, other styles have shields that go over the M.2. So in itself, if you flip it over, it has a little thermal pad under it that you would peel the adhesive off and let that stick on top of it.
Yep.
So that would disperse all the heat off of it.
And sometimes you don't even need it.
Correct. Some of them don't. They leave it
yeah.
completely open.
So.
But I like the ones with the heatsink shields.
Yeah, same. And then the motherboard, again, like PJ mentioned, some of them do have that heat dissipation in the plates. So, because this is a common sense thing, but it's safe to mention that your computer does get really, really hot. That's why there's components designed to cool your system.
Absolutely.
Because there's so much electricity and power going through the system, you'll always have to remember that don't stick your hand in there and start touching components, because things will get really, really hot.
What's that?
So don't do it.
Okay. Since we're going to be installing the M.2, on this motherboard in particular, on the B550, it has two M.2 sockets. It has M.2 1 and 2. Primarily, you want to use M.2 1 when you're doing your OS drive. So this is the one where we're going to be sticking the M.2. And just like every other component, these are keyed as well. With the Corsair MP600, you don't have to worry about figuring out which direction it has to go because obviously
we can't
since
see
it has
it. The SSDs are like all over me.
I'm sorry.
The SSDs here.
The MP600 is keyed just like all the other M.2s would be. But in this case, you don't have to worry about which direction it has to go because since Corsair has the large heatsink on it, it's only going to go in one particular way. So it would go right here on this slot.
Actually, Quantum also mentions in the chat that the heatsink is also removable if you want to use your motherboard plates or heatsinks.
Correct.
That's an option. It's not attached to it, which is awesome. So. And then you're screwing it in because there's actually little tiny screw holes in that M2
Yes, it
area.
comes, the motherboard, the B550M comes with 2 posts. I actually just used one of them. See, it comes with a little post and a screw. That's what you'll use when you're screwing the M.2 down and securing it. So I've already used one, and I just tightened it down. So as far as the motherboard right now is concerned, we are complete. The motherboard is done.
That's it.
Yeah.
The motherboard's actually one of the easiest parts of the build.
As far as build recommendations, when you're doing parts like this, I've noticed, I can say I've seen guys build systems and they start rushing and putting everything into the system first. They'll put the motherboard in, then they'll put the power supply in, and they'll put every hardware component that would obstruct everything they need to get to initially. Like when you need to plug on all the wiring, or if you need to install the CPU, then you have everything sitting up vertically and you got your hands all inside the computer. If you prep everything outside of the case first, when you go into it, it makes the build much easier because now you have to worry about all these little things you have to do. And it's just the big things that need to be knocked out. 1, 2, 3, and you're done.
Hold on, we got a question from the chat for you. Actually, this is something that I'm interested in too. What if you don't use a standoff or something to hold the M.2?
What if you don't use a standoff to hold the M.2? I don't know because I've never done it, but
I don't recommend it personally.
I wouldn't recommend it, to be honest with you.
If you move your system in any way or shape or form, you don't want that SSD to get loose, but you can just, plug it right back in. I recommend it because that way it's secure.
Yeah, it's 100% secure right now. See, it's not coming out.
It's not going to be removed. That's why it's recommended to use a standoff to secure it. That's pretty much it for the motherboard. Thank you, PJ.
No problem.
Walkthrough of the motherboard. So for those who don't know, again, I think motherboard's pretty easy.
Yes.
So
let's get rid of this. Let's put this over here in the accessory box. Actually, let me pull it over here. I know I have it. Origin PC, we put everything in our accessory boxes.
This is exclusive to us, by the way. If you're a customer and you order a system, we include everything. So all the stuff that comes in these parts, we include in the accessory box or with the system.
So with the motherboard, all the user manual stuff.
Yeah, it would go inside the accessory box. So everything.
Yes.
So for whatever reason, if you got your Origin PC system and you need to do tinkering of your own, you have everything as if you bought the components yourself, which is really cool. We got a question from the chat. Why are you building it on the plastic? And actually, there's a reason for that, too.
This plastic?
It's not really plastic, actually.
That is an anti-static bag.
That is an anti-static bag. It's non-conductive. I'd like to do it that way. I think almost everyone here prefers to build on the anti-static bag. So, actually, that's a good question. Let's talk about static really quick. And it's important. So here in Florida, we don't really worry too much about static. But if you're up north, you do have to worry about static because there's
due to the humidity here, we do have it, but it's not extremely severe. So it's not common for us to walk around and get grounded out. Here is when I'm building here, I'm lucky. I have a zero charge lotion that I can use. I actually have it in my office. But I use that so I don't have to, ground myself with a wristband. I used to ground myself with a wristband. Like Lewis was saying, the further west you go out, the more drier areas that you live, you have to be extremely cautious when using that. That's when you notice most of these guys at some manufacturing plants that they're using full coats. You'll see them with anti-static coats wearing those. That coat will be grounded out. So when they're handling the components, they don't cause a charge and pop anything or damage any of those parts.
And of course, grounding yourself too.
Yeah.
Before even touching anything.
Correct.
It's a common sense thing. I know. I mean, you probably might have heard horror stories about static, but if you just play it safe, you're good.
All right. Where are we gonna go next? Where do we go next? Okay, cool.
What's next?
Let's pull the case out so we can show everybody the case. This is the
Origin PC Neuron.
Origin PC Neuron micro ATX case. This case can hold up to...
I'll let you do your talk and I'll comment too.
This case can hold up to, depending on the motherboard, you can max this actual case out with the two M.2s on the motherboard itself. You could put two 3.5 sized mechanical drives, or you can put four 2.5 SSDs, SSHDs, or 7200 HDDs in this system. So this can actually be maxed out with 6 drives in total. If that was the end game. Remember, the customer at Origin PC is able to configure the system however they want. There's so many different configurations. On the assembly line, not one assembler gets two of the exact same system unless that customer is ordering duplicates of whatever they're doing.
Yeah, usually it's like professional orders.
Correct. So these are relatively simple to build. I mean, there is a difficulty level to it because due to the fact that if you notice,
there's
the
no
back of
other
the case
side.
doesn't
It's all
have a
metal.
back side. So everything you're going to be doing when you build this particular style case is done in the front. To take care of that issue, the designers made the posts, they extended them out a little bit more normal than you normally would see them on other cases. So you can run the cables behind the motherboard without having anything exposed. One of the things at Origin PC that I can honestly say we take very much pride in, especially myself, is the cable management. So if you notice any of the systems we do, or even the customer systems that go down the assembly line that reach the customers, the cable management is always clean and on point. We don't like to have what they call in the industry, rat's nests.
Rat's nests.
They're rat's nests.
Don't worry, we're going to get to that cable management stuff. I know a lot of you are excited to see the cable management done a little bit slower.
I would love to share it, but unfortunately, the Neuron itself,
this
it's
is
not
a weird one.
really, you're not going to really see it.
Yeah, this is a weird one, unfortunately.
Because it doesn't have a back panel.
Yeah.
Everything is done on the other side, inside of the case. But when it's done, you can actually notice the cleanliness of the actual system. You'll see that you can't see many cables. I mean, in this case, I think that's it's a very clean, elegant system. And it's going to knock people's socks off if they try to play. So I got to include that too. So the first thing you'll do on this case is we're going to remove the power supply shield. You don't want that exposed or in your way. The case itself, you got your power LEDs over here. You got a reset and power. It doesn't come with an HDD LED ring light indicator. It has a USB 3.0. It's got 2 USB ports in the front. And then you got your HD audio.
So actually, I'm going to pause here really quick because you're going to be using this power drill. And I want to emphasize that using a power drill is something because PJ's really experienced with using a PC. I don't recommend a first-time PC builder to use a power drill.
Correct. If you notice on certain things that I'll be doing on the build, depending on the build that I do, I might not do it with this one, but you'll notice that I will pull a screwdriver out and I will use it on certain spots. I do know on most systems that I build, you can't use a drill on everything.
Yeah.
I am very comfortable using the drill since I've been working here at Origin PC. I've been here for the last 7 years. I was taught how to use the drill when I'm building the systems. It just makes for a lot more efficient time, especially when you're mass producing a lot of systems for customers that need to get out and about. I understand, I'm not saying using a screwdriver is wrong, but if in our case, you know, since we're trying to get customer systems moving along, we use special screwdriver drills that actually have very light torque. In this case, I like to use the Bosch drill. I've had this one for like the last 2.5 years. On the lightest torque, I can build an entire laptop with this thing, and it won't damage any screw on the system. That's why I like this thing. They do make smaller versions, but my preference right now is Bosch. I think Bosch makes an awesome drill.
But again,
I wouldn't recommend.
Don't do it.
I wouldn't recommend the you know, the average person who's just going to build their PC for the first time to even think about using a drill. Use a screwdriver.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that because I know I had a feeling we're going to get questions about it. We get questions all the time on libels about the screwdriver, so I just wanted to knock that out first. And also the cables. I know PJ called out the cables, but typically any case, no matter what case you get, they're going to include these cables. And the reason being because you're going to connect those cables to the motherboard, so when you press the power button, your system turns on. Or if there's like a power light or a storage light that needs to turn on, it's all included. And also your sound devices as well. Basically, if you see that your system has ports on the top, there's most likely cables inside the case that you need to connect to your motherboard. Anything else you want to chime in, PJ?
No,
Oh, you're muted.
I gotta apologize.
You're muted.
The system doesn't have
PJ,
a reset button.
you're muted.
Sorry. I did shut it off. I went
Yeah.
to go grab something to drink. I want to apologize. It does not have a reset button. It does have the HDD on the power LED indicator. The system doesn't have a reset button.
So that cable is essentially just going to be hanging out, but we're going to tie it up.
This one?
No, the reset.
No, there is no reset button on this system at all.
So there's no cable.
There's no cable, period.
Because your motherboard is going to include the reset. It's going to be tricky to show. I wish we could show it.
I guess ideally this case was designed without a reset button.
Yeah.
But
So you can't reset
it
the
does
system.
still, the motherboard itself still does have a pin indicator on it if you want to plug a little button into it to have a reset. But for the most part, people really don't use a reset button too much.
Yeah, no.
So
I don't
when was the
know.
last time you used your reset button, Lewis?
Nah.
Remember the last time you did that? Remember that when you had to use it? Exactly. It's cool. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to actually install the motherboard first.
Actually, can we angle it so we can actually see it? Because right now we're working with the
First,
dark
let me-
case.
let
It's
me-
kind of tricky.
Yeah.
So let's
let
get
me
the
move this
lighting.
out of the way.
Yeah, let's remove the panel too.
Let me turn the drill off. This is one of the reasons why I turned the mic off, because I don't want to blow your ears out with this drill.
Yeah. So stay tuned. I'll let him know to unmute. Yeah. Yeah. So we actually just muted PJ's mic, so you guys don't hear the drill. All right. So you carefully set that glass panel off to the side. You don't want to be building with the panel or any panels if it's any hinges or anything like that. Just put it off to the side. Can you adjust the light?
Is that better? How much way you want me to adjust the light?
Just all the way. Actually, let me brighten it up. We're using the Elgato lights actually, so I'm gonna brighten it up on my phone. Let's see. Real bright. Did it brighten? Check. Maybe.
Yeah, it did.
It's real bright now.
It's getting brighter.
Yep.
How's that?
So I'm using the Elgato Control Center app right now on my
Is
phone.
that better?
Yep, that's much better.
Okay. You gotta take me into consideration over here too, man. You don't want to blind me with that light. That light looks like the sun right above me.
I turned off my light. There you go. All right, there you go. Cool.
All right. So.
Yeah,
My
the
apologies.
control center app's really useful for our streams because we have that set up, so you can just change it. So PJ's gonna look a little bright, but there's a reason for that. It's because we want to make sure you guys can see what's going on inside the case.
Correct. So.
All right, so the case is prepped, but PJ's gonna be opening up the power supply, and I guess we'll talk about the power supply
Yeah.
once you've unboxed it. Because there's a lot of stuff in the power supply box. It's actually
Oh,
the
yeah.
biggest box next to the
If you want,
CPU cooler.
Lewis, you want to switch to the other camera so they can get the other angle
Yeah,
of the
give
opening?
me jump
There you
over
go,
here.
there. Perfect.
All right, we're gonna swap cameras real quick. All right, so different angle. You can see PJ's face there. But you'll see that the power supply comes with not just the actual power supply unit, but also a bag with a bunch of cables. Look at that. Oh, like Corsair branding as well. But you got all your important cables there. Now, you might see all those cables, but you might not necessarily need all those cables.
Correct.
Corsair provides all the cables that the power supply could possibly use. You can actually even add extra cables from Corsair's website if you need to.
This is a full modular, correct?
Yep.
So everything can
Actually,
be plugged in on all the ports.
so
if
we
you
can
wanna
talk about
notice.
that modularity. Did I just make up a word? But because this is a
Modularity.
I know that is. I'm
better-
going to
you-
confirm that.
Better coin that like right now.
Hold on. Let me confirm because I don't want to sound like a goof. Modularity? Is that an actual word? It is, but it's more for software.
Brandon Son, does the
For
power supply
networking.
come with a jumper for testing the PSU? Yes, every Corsair power supply comes with a jumper. I actually have it over here somewhere. Where is it? I do have it. I do have it somewhere, but I'll get to it. I'll get to it later. But yes, every Corsair power supply comes with a jumper to it that you can actually test it. It's a 24-pin tester. What you would essentially use it for is what I use it for is if I'm having an issue with the system, and let's say once the system's complete, everybody has problems. No system's perfect. That the power doesn't turn on at all. One of the things that I'll essentially do to diagnose the system is I'll disconnect the 24-pin while the system is up and running. You want to make sure that your power supply is off. Plug that 24-pin tester in, and then power it on. If the power supply is feeding, what it does is it jumps the power supply to power on. If everything you have connected to the power supply kicks on, aside from the motherboard, you know that everything around it is working. If you plug it back into your motherboard and you're not getting power to it, chances are your motherboard could have died. You could have a dead motherboard. Unfortunately, that's the game you play when you actually buy some of these components from certain manufacturers. Motherboards do go bad, even if they're brand new out of the box.
I think that's with almost any component.
Correct. That's just the way
it's
the
a
game
fact of
goes, man.
life,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? So, in this case, on the Neuron, since all the cables go in the back, first thing you want to do is you want to assess out of the pouch from the Corsair bag, what cables you're gonna need to run these first. So the motherboard automatically already has one 8-pin connector for the CPU. Also, if you notice,
There we go.
the Corsair power supply cables are all keyed. That tells you PCIe, so you know that this is for your video card. This is your Molex connector. It's a 4-pin connector. These are keyed as well. There's only one way to put these in.
Yeah, you can't force. By the way, don't force them if it's not going in. Just flip
Correct.
it.
I mean, I don't know how good the camera's gonna get if you can see them, but you see how it's shaped.
It's kind of tricky, but there is a curvature that prevents you from putting it in the wrong way. Also, I'm
Yes.
gonna do a quick loop here.
Oh, that's monkey.
We're good? All right, we're good.
Right.
Specs are scrolling in the bottom of the screen now, so these are fully up to date. If you see anything wrong, just let me know.
This is your 24-pin. This is what's gonna connect to the motherboard. So I know off the bat I'm gonna need this guy, and I'm looking for my CPU
Molex in 2020. Some devices actually do use it. I know, it's surprising.
and then the CPU cable.
So that's one thing I do like with the Corsair power supply. It actually marks and lets you know like which are for which, like PCIe, CPU, and motherboard. It's really nice. It's good for if you're not familiar with the power cables. It's nice to know. I will also say I was talking about the modular aspect of the power supply. There are some power supplies that actually have the cables already pre-plugged in, or they're already connected, which is fine. There's really nothing wrong with it. Some people prefer the modular ones, so you can like really truly customize the angle of the cables. I think the majority of our systems, PJ, if I'm correct, we use modular.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Everything is modular.
So, but you can. There's nothing wrong with
Non-modular
pre-wired
systems.
power supplies. If that's what you can get, by all means.
I don't.
Actually, that brings me a good question. Speaking of the pre-connected, the differences between bronze, gold, and platinum. PJ, thoughts on that? Because I have mine. So
Well, here at work we always use the platinum one.
yeah, we try to for customers because we build high-end systems that are expected to run a lot. We try to go with the higher end, so gold and platinum are the preferred. That's your power efficiency, right? So there's so much electricity that you can pull from the wall, and it goes straight to your components. There's nothing wrong with bronze.
Depending on the quality, and you're going from bronze to gold to silver.
Yeah.
It's just all it's telling
platinum,
you is
platinum.
it's letting you know it's giving you the more stable and resourceful that the heat and energy are going to be used in the system.
Yep. Fans do use Molex, some of them, but the ones we're using today do not. It actually plugs straight into the motherboard, if I'm correct. And actually, do we have are we using the IQ
Yes, we are.
Okay.
We're going to use the SP120 RGB Pros. That one comes with the node and the hub actually with it. So.
Okay, that's what I want to make sure.
Correct. We should be good on that. So I'm going to install the motherboard now. But
actually, before you install the motherboard, can you show people specifically where the power supply connections are in the motherboard?
Power supply connection.
So like the CPU and the motherboard connectors.
Oh, my apologies. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on this motherboard in particular.
Yeah, go ahead and point it out.
Your 8-pin CPU is over here on the top.
So that is where the CPU power supply cable is going to be plugged in. It's going to be at the top.
And then over here is your 24-pin connector, which is right next to the memory sticks.
And that's the really thick power connector that you'll connect on the side.
So one thing I wanted to point out, when you're installing the motherboard into the case, you have to make sure that you put your IO shield on first onto the case itself.
Oh, that's a fun part.
Some motherboards nowadays, they actually come with the IO shield actually pre-built in or mounted to the actual motherboard itself, so it's not something you have to worry about. But this motherboard in particular does come with an IO shield. Now, if you notice all these little springs and little things that are popped up on the back, they're actually to help give it like a little flex back and forth, but you have to mind some of them because they're not actually pressed in where they're supposed to be. So, for example, if you notice when we plug this in, you see how it has for the HDMI connection, these little pins right here?
Mm-hmm.
You want to make sure that before you install the motherboard and you put the IO shield on, you want to get these pins and you want to bend them back. The reason why you want to do that is because if you don't do that and these pins are sticking out on the HDMI port for whatever reason that you plug it in there, you can't connect the HDMI in there at all because this is obstructing it. And as silly as it sounds, just to bend that back and get it out of the way, you'd have to remove the entire motherboard out of the system. And then that becomes an extreme pain in the butt.
And I will also note that normally you don't use the HDMI port on the motherboard, especially if you have a graphics
card.
Correct,
but for whatever reason you need it, you don't want it there.
Yeah, correct. Because like imagine if something happens to your graphics card, you need to plug into the HDMI port on your system, and then you realize you can't plug in, and you're like, uh-oh, that's not good. So you definitely want to make sure that it's not sticking out there.
So yeah, the IO shield itself.
You made it look so easy too, by the way.
It is easy. Look, you can pop it right back out. It's no big deal.
Like you made it look so easy. Like for me, it took a little bit for me.
No, I mean some of them are a lot harder than than the others are. I can agree with you on that. I don't know which one you have, but I know that some of them are really, really difficult to put in. But this one's super easy. The way I get it is I always start at the top right-hand corner, and I'll lock the top in. And as the top's locked in, it's not going to move or pop back in place. I'll start at the bottom again. And then it just snaps in place.
Snap in. And make sure that all of it's snapped in too.
Make sure everything is snapped in.
There's little notch there.
So
it's not.
So the IO shield's pushed in the back, and I got this one pushed back so the HDMI cable or plug is clear.
So we're good. IO shield's good.
Yes, sir.
Motherboard's ready to go.
I'm going to use the drill.
All right, so good. Peter's going to mute himself. I was the only one asking if PJ's grounded. He's good. Yeah, trust us. We're good there. Getting schooled by PJ. I mean, this is, I guess, in retrospect, but don't worry, this is not for you, PJ. I'm just talking to the chat. For the cables, because again, the Neuron is a strange case for cables management, because normally consumer cases are not like this at all. Normally, you can actually reach to the back and do the cable management on the other side of the case, but again, because the Neuron's design is pretty much all metal, steel, you can't do it, so it's going to be very carefully cabled. And this is also brings me to a good point that not every case is going to be the same in terms of the cable management. But there are some components you can expect to be, you can find in the same place in general. Like the CPU power cable is most likely always going to be in the top left. The motherboard power cable is most likely going to be in the center right once you've mounted it. Yeah, there are some, the placements can also be off too, but I'm just in general.
Have you seen the,
you're muted. PJ's talking.
I'm sorry. There's the typically you're right. Most of the CPU ports are always going to be on your top left, and the 24 pin is going to be in the same location.
Yeah.
But lately, I've seen some new motherboards coming out. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if it's the new ROG Rampage board that ASUS makes.
Let me look it up.
That they have 3 8 pins on the top right-hand corner. That motherboard is a monstrosity, dude. It is an animal.
You said Rampage?
I think it's a Rampage.
Let me look it up.
I believe it is. If it's not a Rampage, it's a Maximus. But it has three 8-pin ports on the top right-hand corner that you have to plug in.
I don't think it's this one. I think it might be the Maximus.
So,
This was a cool motherboard though.
if you do notice, I've only screwed one screw in on the motherboard itself because I need to have.
Oh, that reminds me. The mounting point. Because you know how sometimes cases have like the thing that
little
holds the
pin that
motherboard up?
pops out.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do not have that.
Yeah, so that's, again, every case is different. I wanted to bring that up because it's important when you're working with other cases, because depending on the size of your motherboard, there's a little, what would you call it? Like a mounting pin? There's a specific name for it. But basically, it's like a little round...
The Corsair cases have it. It looks like a little pin that they always keep in the center hole of the actual motherboard. It's a post that they create.
Yeah.
So what it is when you mount the motherboard in it, the idea is for it sits right on that post, and you can let the motherboard go without it falling over.
Correct.
So you can just use the rest of the points to just screw the motherboard in.
And that's how you know your motherboard's in the right place too. If you're kind of shifting it around, you realize that it's like not really like shifting crazy, it's just mounted, that means you're good because that little mount is holding it up. Some cases actually let you change it based on the size of the motherboard too. So if you're using a EATX board or a smaller ITX board, you can actually change that mount.
Correct.
So standoffs. Yeah, there you go. Standoffs. Sorry.
Yeah, the standoffs on here are already pre-built in the case. It just doesn't have a post to hold the motherboard.
The posts, okay. The posts and then standoffs. It's because standoffs are where PJ's actually gonna screw in.
Yeah. So as of right now, I only have one screw on the motherboard. I needed to have a little bit of flex because I got to get these cables behind the motherboard.
And again, because I have to say it over and over again because this
is not your typical.
Normally,
case.
you don't do this, and I need to emphasize that. Because in another case, you can just mount everything already, you're good to go, and you're good. That's it. But because we're working with the Neuron case, PJ has to do it this way.
Correct.
It's 4 o'clock down here in Miami, Florida.
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm actually still looking up the board. Is it this one? No, I can't find it. Oh, this one, no, that one has 8 and 4. That's weird. But yeah, motherboards, the location though is almost in the same place though. I've just never seen it in the top right.
Did you find it?
No. No.
You haven't found it?
No.
It's there. But anyway. I'm telling you, it's a crazy motherboard.
Who is the PC for? It's just a demonstration.
Yes.
This is actually just a full-on demonstration build. Or a build a PC workshop, I should say, specifically. For friends over at Corsair.
I need to assess this thing.
Oh, we're going to showcase the GPU.
Yep, let's showcase that GPU. I need to take a look at it.
You're thinking the size? I think that should be good.
That's why I'm checking. You know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah,
then,
I know. I think you're good, though.
I stopped to look because I'm paying attention to the location of where I need to put the fans. So I had to stop for a second and make sure that when I put these fans inside here, that this video card is not going to. Yeah, you know what? I just think it's the size of the box.
Yeah, normally those those GPUs.
These GPUs are big boys.
Yeah. Actually, that brings me to another point because we're using this case. This case has 4 slots in the back, if you can see.
This thing is trippy. Look at that. That's some special packaging there.
So
Thank
that
you, ROG. ROG.
If I'm correct, that's 2 slots, right?
This one here?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It looks wider though. On the camera, it makes it look like it's a little bit bigger.
It is, but.
Are you gonna put it on now, or are you just gonna using it as a reference?
No, I'm just mocking it up. I'm just
Yeah.
mocking it up for now.
Yeah. So right now, PJ's just putting on for as a reference point, but he's not gonna leave it there because he has a lot more to go.
Yes.
So.
I just want to make sure that when I install the fans, that it won't obstruct anything.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're good.
All right. So he's gonna go ahead and
We are good
use
to
the
go.
anti-static bag to hold the GPU off to the side. Because right now we're focusing on cabling. And I guess one of the other perks, because we are using a modular system, is we're actually able to plug in these cables without having it connected to the power supply already.
Correct.
And that's a nice feature, right?
Yes, because then I don't have to have the power supply obstructing any, like, my way while I'm working on it.
Yeah. Or it's not like tied to it, kind of like a ball and chain almost, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. PJ's muted because he's drilling. Just FYI. All right, let's see. What is the retail value of this build? Good question. I wish I could spec out on originpc.com, but I will say, let me jump to the specs really quick. I can, Eugenia, I'm not sure if you want to do that, the cost, or if you want me to attempt to estimate the cost for the stream. But I'm going to jump to the specs really quick so you can see them all on screen. My guess for this system, I'm going to say, let's see. Based on all these parts, I'm going to guess this is close to 1,500. All right. Perfect. Thank you. All right, Quantum, we're waiting on you for the official cost. Just to give you an FYI, I would probably estimate the Neuron close to 200, so that'll help you with your cost. That's not the specific price. I'm just going to give you the ballpark. So we'll wait for that. And go ahead and chat, take a guess. My estimation is going to be, again, close to 1,500. So. Actually, let me do something here really quick. I say over. Kevin thinks it's over.
The over and under game.
Actually, I wonder, can we get the other camera a little bit closer so people can see what you're doing over there? Not this camera, the other one.
This one here?
Yeah, let me put it up there so you can actually see it in action. And just angle it down. A little more.
A little more?
Yeah. Angle downwards so you can see your hands. Perfect. All right. All right, we're going to do a quick jump. All right, what are you doing over there?
What I'm actually doing over here is I'm kind of like getting the cables wrapped around this little tray right here. This tray is essentially where you would put your 2.5 drives, or you would mount your 1 3.5 here at the top.
Yeah.
So
but
since we're not
that
utilizing
build,
any of those, we're only using 1M.2. So this is not to be used, but since it's not something we're going to be using, doesn't mean you're going to get rid of it. So when the case
don't throw
comes,
it out.
since when the case, when you get the case out of the bag, usually the cables are sticking up right over here on top. So the cables are a little bit pinched. So in order to get them behind it, you need to remove the tray. You want to stuff them behind the back, and then you lay the tray back in on top of it, and you can screw them in. They're actually held on with thumb screws, so they're not super tight to take off or put back on.
I got rid of the top left picture. We had a picture-in-picture going on over there, but I fixed that. Thank you, Mnemonic. Calling me out.
So
I will say, because, again, for this system, we're only using the M.2 SSD, but for, say, a normal build, what if you don't have a M.2 SSD? You'll most likely need a place to mount your 2.5-inch hard drive.
Correct.
Or SSD.
That's where this tray here is where that would go.
Yeah. Or again, depending on your case, there might be a specific place you can actually mount your hard drive. I know the Corsair cases actually have a really cool feature. You can actually mount them on the other side where the cables are. It's really, I like that feature a lot. So you can do that, or other cases as well. So.
All right.
Again, check your manuals. Your manuals will give you all the tips and tricks for your specific case.
Once I get the essential cables for the motherboard itself, like set up where I want behind the motherboard, I'm going to start screwing the motherboard down itself.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to leave these last two open because I still have the fans at the top that I'm going to plug in. But since I have the IQ as well, I run the IQ at the bottom under the power supply shield. So I still need to get the cables for the IQ to get downwards to the hub. In order to do that, I still run everything behind the motherboard itself. My apologies. And again, I try to keep these systems as clean as possible. So the less cabling, since this is the bulk cabling, to me the bulk cabling is, you get the system up and running. It's essential. It's what it needs. So in my case, if that's what I'm running in my system, I don't want to show that. I want to hide it. If I'm running sleeved cables, that's different. Remember, you can always get and get custom sleeve cables for the systems in itself, and then that way you can, put a little style or a little, flair to your system if that's what you want to do. But in this case, the bulk cables, I try to hide them as best as possible. So I don't want to see them when I'm done. So that's the route we're going to go.
Yeah.
So right now, I'm going to tuck these cables back up. As soon as I can get them, they're there. Up on this post here. I don't know why they're being a pain in the butt. And then move it back in place. Done.
Oh, there's a question here that I'm going to answer really
question.
quick. Would you recommend to update my gaming computer starting a bit slow? I can run demanding games on medium settings. So if you already own a gaming computer or just a computer in general, the component that you're gonna, or the two components, or three actually, I'm now adding more components. The components that you're gonna want to consider to upgrade are going to be the graphics card, the RAM, and your storage. Graphics card being the one with the greatest impact. So there's a tool that I use personally to determine if my was the upgrade worth it, essentially. Again, I'm not, I don't want to promote it, but if you look up on Steam, it's called 3D Mark. We like to use it here for tests too, but you'll find that that's like an industry standard to see the boost of performance based on hardware. So what I like to do sometimes if I'm doing an upgrade or helping a friend out is we run a 3D Mark test before the upgrade and then after the upgrade, so you can see the difference between your specs. And you'll find that the GPU actually has a massive impact on your test too. So when you pick the graphics card for your system, you want to make sure that, number one, your power supply supports the graphics card, and number two, that you're not creating a bottleneck. I was actually thinking about the idea of bringing up bottlenecking here in this conversation, but I'll bring it up briefly. I don't want to dwell too much on it because it's not really that common of a problem nowadays. If you're building your own system, new with brand new components, you're fine. However, if you're upgrading a system using older components, that's where bottlenecking might come into play. So what bottlenecking means, or a rough estimation, I'm not going to do a precise explanation, is that a component is essentially slowing down the rest of the system, preventing it from, being the best possible system. So sometimes it could be your GPU, sometimes it could be your RAM, and sometimes it could be your CPU. One common source of bottlenecking for several legacy systems or older systems is going to be your CPU. And the reason being because your CPUs tend to get old, right? So when you upgrade, you can't really upgrade your CPU sometimes because your motherboard might not support or you might not be able to find an upgraded CPU for your motherboard. So that's why I say GPU might be the best bet. Okay, let's see. Hopefully I answered that. I think I went off on a really crazy tangent, but
Sometimes you gotta go thorough with the explanation.
Yeah, graphics card, CPU, not CPU, graphics card, SSD, RAM. Those are the components you want to check out to upgrade. So
I didn't believe that at first either. When I first was trying.
You're muted. PJ's talking.
I didn't believe that at first when I first started to upgrade my computer. I thought I needed a heavy part. Oh, I need a GPU or I need this. And a buddy of mine who first started messing with my computer, he's like, dude, the only thing you need to do is just switch your system and your OS at least to an SSD. And you'll see how much of a significant difference you get.
That is the
second
best
I did that,
upgrade.
dude, it was from there. Then I decided, you know what? Okay, yeah, it runs better. Now let me see what else I can get. Maybe I'll get some memory now. Maybe I'll do this. And little by little, then it made it easier to know what components I needed to continue upgrading. All right.
I see Quantum put up the prices here. So the motherboard, he says, is around our CPU is 210, motherboard 150, GPU 230, RAM 75. So adding the case, it's going to be close to 1,237. Did you include the fans in that? Hold on, let me see there. I think if you include the fans in that, it's probably closer to 1,300 because we have how many fans? 5 or
4?
4. We have 4 fans.
4
so
SP120 RGBs, so you got to be specific on which ones you put in there too. They're not the QLs. The QLs and the SPs, there's a significant difference in price on that.
I did not include the extra fans. Okay, yeah, so that'll definitely boost up the price closer to 1,300 or so. Again, including the case. I mentioned that the case is closer to 200 or so. The CPU we're using on this case is the AMD Ryzen 5 3600X. Question, is it recommended to overclock with the stock cooler? No, I wouldn't do it.
I wouldn't. I'm not saying it's not impossible. You might get lucky, but I wouldn't recommend it.
I wouldn't do it. If you want to do overclocking, I would recommend doing it with an all-in cooler or a serious heatsink. When I say serious, I mean like a higher-end heatsink. Corsair actually makes a heatsink. You can check it out on their site.
The IQ, the H100i, that'll.
I think
that's more than capable of running an overclock.
Yeah, I think the all-in-one cooler is probably your best bet if you want to attempt overclocking. Now, overclocking is a whole nother deal. I don't want to spend too much time talking about it. Again, that's a little bit of a higher-end thing. But you can do it. There's so many tools out there now that can help you essentially AMD actually has a couple tools to make it easy to overclock your system. But be warned, if you do it incorrectly, you can mess with your system in the wrong ways. So undervolt, nah, you don't have to do that. I wouldn't think so. I only overclock in the last year with 2 CPUs. Yeah, that sounds feasible. Those are the fans.
We have to install the cooler up top now. The idea on the system again.
You're muted. He's talking.
I gotta keep reminding myself to keep turning this mic back on. My apologies. Then our next step now is we gotta start putting the cooler at the top because remember
CPU cooler.
Yes, the CPU cooler. Remember, since we have to work with all the cables behind the motherboard, we want to make sure every cable that is going to have to be stuffed behind it is done preliminary, done first.
Yeah.
So we need to put the cooler up top, and we need to get the fans mounted, and then run those cables behind the motherboard as well, and bring them down here at the bottom. I don't know if I can really get close. Maybe I can with the case, but yeah. See, I've already ran everything. If you notice, you see so far, I've hidden almost every cable from the motherboard that I was just installing. You can't see anything.
Again, this is specific to our case.
Yeah.
Normally, if you're using, say, a Corsair case, the cables would be running from the back.
Yeah, I can feed those to the back, and then I would have the mounting points to actually hide and manage the cable and clean it up. But either way, you can still make these things very clean.
You know what I kind of want to do near the end,
what do you
once you finish your system, is
What's
if
up?
we could grab a system and showcase how cable management would be, and just to briefly explain it in like 5 minutes or so. Because my concern is
I got one I can bring over here. It's a Millennium, but you can get it.
Yeah, the reason I want to do that is to showcase the cable, because again, the Neuron case is not a normal case. Like I know there's probably some out there that are similar to this one, but normally the cables would run to the other side. So I'm just emphasizing that over and over again. I'm sorry I sound like a broken record, but again, that's just specifically for this case.
Broken record.
Can we get a case count? You got 200.
All right. So we are using Corsair's SP120 fans.
All right, let me jump over. Let me check the other cameras really quick. I'm gonna jump to the other camera. Give me a second. We're gonna showcase the fans, right?
Yeah. Corsair's SP120s.
So these are IQ enabled.
Yes,
for
sir.
those of you that do not know, IQ
over
is
here on this side. Sorry, guys.
There you go.
So each fan comes with a 4-pin. They're PWM fan connectors, so that actually they'll regulate with the speed on the motherboard itself. And then the second cable here, this is the one that's actually going to plug in and control which is this yellow one here, sorry. This is the one that goes to the IQ hub. So this right here, this cable is going to connect to the actual IQ controller, and that's what's going to control all the lighting.
Yep.
So,
and the motherboard does have enough ports for the fans, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Normally they do. So.
No, you got me double checking here. I gotta make
What do you consider this build spec for? I would consider this primarily gaming. You could probably stream on it, but my recommendation would probably be gaming. If you did stream on it, you probably most likely get away with 720p rendering for your stream, I would say, because the Ryzen CPU is really good for handling both gaming and streaming. I like those Ryzen CPUs, man. I wish I had a system running one, man. Just to test it and mess around with it. I like messing with computer parts and testing them, so. We're actually using a Threadripper on our streaming PC, so it's nice.
We don't play games over here. I mean, we play games, but we don't play games,
Yeah.
You get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
We kid, but we don't kid. All right, so once we have the motherboard already pretty much set up in the system, we need to mount these front fans. These front fans are being held on by these brackets here.
And again, this is specific to our case.
Again, specific to the Origin, Neuron case. So these mounting brackets here are going to hold these fans. So what we do is just make sure you line them up
Oh,
properly.
what about how's the airflow? Let's talk about airflow before you
The
start mounting.
airflow in this system is going to come, it's intaking and then an exhaust out the top.
There you go.
It's going to do this. Heat rises. So you want it to suck all the air in as cool as much as it can and blow all it right out the top.
Yep, there you go. I had a feeling an airflow question would come up soon. That's why I wanted to mention that.
Correct.
What generation of Threadripper? I believe ours. Let me check. I'll tell you right now. Let me check. Really, I think this is the first generation for our streaming PC, but still, we love it. So, it's powered all of our streams. So, device manager. Ooh. Yeah, 1920X. It's 12 cores.
That's the
Still
last.
great.
That's the last gen or the first gen?
First gen.
Still good.
I think it's fantastic. For what we're doing, it's great. So, actually, let's angle it down. Actually, I'm gonna swap the cameras so we can see what you're doing with the fans.
Sure. Excuse me 1 second.
Quick camera swap. Actually, the camera to your right, let's just angle it so you can see what's happening with the fans.
I'm thinking I might start standing up, Mr. Lewis.
All right,
My
so
legs need to be stretched.
all right, we're gonna jump to the spec screen because PJ's
no,
gonna
no,
adjust
it's okay.
the cameras.
It's just as simple as
It's
just
gonna be a
lift
lot
it
of shaking.
up. Shaking.
Yeah, give me a second here. I'm gonna.
Oh,
All right,
yeah,
so
the
you can see
camera.
it. Yeah, there you go. All right, we got that. PJ's gonna be readjusting. We have a table that's actually a standing desk, so we're just readjusting the cameras.
Although that chair is very comfortable.
Corsair chair.
Yes.
It's a great chair.
Although the chair is very comfortable, I feel much more comfortable standing up when I'm doing the builds.
So let's go over the specs one more time. We're building with a Neuron case. Again, you can't find that case anywhere else. You can only find it at originpc.com, and you can only get the case if you order the full system. I know one of the common questions we receive is that, can I buy the cases? No, you can't. You got to order the system to get it. But every once in a blue moon, we do it. But I don't want to dwell too much on the case. The power supply is a Corsair RM850X 80 plus gold power supply. Someone is actually asking, is that overkill? I guess maybe. But it may essentially it's future proof
Correct.
in some aspects. Because if you wanted to upgrade the GPU in the future, say if AMD releases, new graphics cards, you're pretty much free to do so. You don't have to worry about changing the power supply. Now, could you go with a less powered PSU for this system? Absolutely. No question. I think if you were to save some money on this build, you could probably get away with a 650 watt. I would say. I think that's a safe option. 650 watts good. Motherboard's ASUS Prime B55.
B550. He did it again, folks. He did it again.
I blame the GPU.
B55 100,000.
550 MA.
B522.
CPU coolers, the Corsair iQ H100i RGB Pro XT. CPU is already on the motherboard. The AMD Ryzen 5 3600X. GPU is the ASUS ROG AMD Radeon RX 5500 XT.
Oh, look,
card.
you got 2 5s there the way you want to say it. Look at that.
That's what I'm thinking of, man. That's what I'm thinking of. And then the RAM is 16 gigabytes, 3000 megahertz, a DDR4. All right, we're going to jump back to the build. Give me a second here. Actually, where's this camera at? Hold on. Can you adjust the camera to your right before we make the jump? And zoom in, possibly, without getting in your way too much. And angle down. Perfect. Excellent. Just want to make sure we got the camera right before we make the jump, but we're good. I wonder how long I see there. I would like to try. Like, I hear a lot of talk about those chairs, but I would like to try them. All right, back to work. Enjoy. So PJ's currently, again, we were talking about that earlier, mounting the fans. Actually, PJ, before we mount, how do you know which direction to mount your fan? Unmute.
Are you asking as far
Yeah.
as like how to intake and exhaust?
There's a
the fans?
trick. There's a trick. Because sometimes the fans even just give you the idea of how the air flows.
If you're not sure about which direction you need to put the fans in, some fan companies, specifically Corsair, actually indicate the fan direction on the fan itself.
Mm-hmm.
So
Can you show that on
if you're
camera?
not
if possible?
sure, you're like, this, in this case, I would say this is intaking. It's going to go in the case this way. So this is intaking. The fan's going this way. It's going to suck the air in, and it's going to bring it out this way. If you're unsure of that, you move right over here to the side on the fan, and you can see right over here.
Look at
gives
that
you the
arrow.
direction.
There's arrows right there.
So
What do you know?
this is intaking. See, essentially, it's got in the air. That's the air direction it's going to
Yep.
go.
I like the sticker method too. I think the sticker method's pretty useful too.
Well, then use the sticker method, Mr. Lewis.
Well, so if you look at the sticker, you'll see that the Corsair sticker, you can see the logo clearly. But if you flip it,
He's right, okay? He's right.
can you flip it? Can you show? So you
Where?
can see what I'm talking about. So if you flip it, you'll see that the sticker actually shows like all the details. You can't really see it on the camera.
This
but
one?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
That-
that's how you know the direction is correct.
Yeah. So basically,
And it actually tells
if
right
you
on
wanted
top
to
of
look
it.
pretty,
See? Boom.
there you go. So that's how you know where the air's coming from.
In
That's
this
the sticker
case,
method.
since I'm trying to keep the cables as close together as possible, I don't want one coming from. Since I'm trying to keep the cables as close as possible, so I want them to meet here. So they're not going to be lined up perfectly. But that's okay. That doesn't mean that the IQ lighting is going to be out of sync. It doesn't matter. But I want the cables to meet together here. I don't want one here and want one here, because then that means I have cables the same length, shorter than the other, when I'm trying to just get down to the bottom of the case itself. So that's why I'm mounting them this way.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Feel free to mute when you drill. Doink. All right. So we got the fans, we got the motherboard, and we're going to show off the cabling on another system later. Because again, I wish we could do it with this one specifically, but it's a unique case, chassis, whatever you want to call it. I like case. Let me see here. I'm just checking for the questions, but we are streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. A lot of the questions are coming from Twitch. For those of you watching on Facebook or YouTube, I see you guys. If I didn't respond to you earlier, I apologize, but I've been keeping a close eye on the Twitch chat for today. But if you're there, feel free to say hello. So, why the 5500 XT and not the, not that one? It's just for this build. I know one of the comments we actually got earlier was about the graphics card, but this is just more of like a mid to low range system, just as a showcase to build a PC.
All right, we got our fan mounted on our bracket.
Oh, look at that. Again, this is unique to our system.
So, unique to
sometimes
our
cases
system?
do have brackets, though.
Yeah.
I think some of the
This
Corsair
one
ones
here?
do have it.
We have hooks on them. See the little hooks?
Hey,
These little guys right here will lock it in place. So once I put once I put the fans in there, slide it right on the rail. That's it.
that's our case.
So those fans are there. The idea of putting the fans back here was so I can run them below this rail and drop down to the bottom. Again, making all the cables disappear from the case. You don't even see the fan cables.
So they're not hanging out in that
Nope.
little open space next to the motherboard power supply cable. Because
Keeping
I
the
could see
cable-
that happen. If you were inexperienced, I could see a cable possibly getting loose there, but they're aligned in such a way that they go straight down and they're hidden. So.
But I'm not gonna put those in just yet. And then we of course have our Corsair RGB hub.
The IQ hub, hooray.
These are new actually. These look like the ones that were in the QL. I think if I'm not mistaken, Eugene, I'm guessing they upgraded the RGB hubs, because this looks like the one that they would use specifically for the QL fans. But
I think
these
they
are
might
yeah,
have.
no, these came out the box. So I'm
Yeah, I was
guessing
going to
these-
say that came with the box.
Yeah,
I
no, I'm
think
not
they
saying this
did.
is an incorrect one. I'm guessing for the future line, we're going to be getting the newer hubs. I like them much better because that means you don't have to use two separate ones. You only use one.
I got Sheaf in the chat saying Node Core. I'm actually gonna make a quick jump to
Oh,
Corsair's IQ page because IQ is actually something really cool.
IQ is pretty cool.
And I'm gonna explain why we have the node core. Where's that page? I lost it. I had it, but I lost it. Give me a second. I know, PJ, keep doing your thing. I'm just looking for something.
Hey, don't yell at me.
Hey, man. There we go. All right, we're gonna make a quick jump. I don't want to spend too much time here. So here, this is Corsair's IQ webpage, which explains how IQ connects to pretty much everything once you've set it up properly with your system. So when I say everything, I mean any device that's IQ enabled can connect directly to the system and essentially link up, and you can control it via software. And for here at Origin PC, we actually download the software and include it with your system. But if you're building your own PC, it's highly recommended you download the IQ software and include it with your system so you can manage the lighting and actually even more if you wanted to. Yeah, that's the advanced control section right there. Oh, we're making a jump here. So with IQ, you can actually sync it up with your games. Certain games actually support specific profiles. The recently released, is it on here? Oh, it didn't include it on here. But hold on. Ubisoft released a battle royale game in beta. It's called Hyperscape. That actually supports IQ. Over here, we actually have demonstrations for Metro Exodus, Division 2. But you can also create your own profiles as well. It's pretty neat. And again, IQ applies to your system components, any peripherals that support IQ. And actually now, a new thing is ASUS products as well. You can learn more on IQ or the IQ website. You can find it on Corsair.com. We like it because you can do some pretty cool lighting techniques. I think for which system that we did the US colors?
Which ones? The ones that I just recently did that went out. Yeah, we did those in USA colors. I made it use the ping pong theme, so let it bounce back and forth.
Yeah. And I think there's a really, really tight-knit IQ community that actually creates a ton of profiles. Actually, I downloaded a Doom one. It's
do you have
cool.
IQ at your house, Louis?
Yeah.
You do? What do you have set up?
Currently, the lights are off. Because when you game in the dark, those lights can be sometimes distracting if you're playing like a fast first-person shooter.
I get it.
But I demonstrate, I like Rainbow too.
As of right now, I only have the keyboard, but the keyboard I have set to like I found one that it's like a Vice colors, but it's like sunset.
Oh, so, nice. So it's like
yeah, it's got like a sunset theme to it. It looks pretty cool. Ugh. All right, forgive me, just tightening up some cables back over here. All right, so what I did so far is, let me move this out of the way so you guys can see. So far what I did was I connected the IQ RGB hub to the bottom. I don't know if you can see it there.
It's there. I can see it.
So I connected it here and I made sure that I tied it in with all the other wires that I have over here at the bottom. So as of right now, this little hub of cables is your USB 3.0 cable. This is your power. This is your HDD LED. This is your power LED. And this is your 8-pin for your CPU port. Everything is being fed to this one spot. I have plenty of slack that when the power supply is plugged in, this can just simply plug right into here, no problem.
Yeah, the distance measuring is really important for any build.
100%.
So you don't necessarily need a ruler, but if you can approximate how much cable you need to reach your power supply, that's really important when figuring out which cable goes where. PJ prefers to try to keep the cables like all in sync, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So instead of like having multiple little cables all over the place, try to keep them all in one area. You can actually see it right there.
It's a pet peeve to pretty much, I don't like having. I've seen some guys are comfortable working with getting, and we'll talk about like as like a standard case, for example. They'll mount the motherboard and then they'll plug every single cable inside to the motherboard itself, and it looks like, to me, I would start panicking. I have an anxiety attack seeing all those cables just laying all over the place. So for me, it's much easier just to step by step go one by one. This goes here, this goes here. Already have your cables that you need to use already spread out.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about what's going to go where, or what's the next cable I need to use. You already know it's right here. This goes here. Boom. So in this case, I mean, if you've noticed, I've just been putting everything in piece by piece. I haven't been throwing everything in, because when you do that, that's when you slow down. You start confusing yourself. Okay, what goes where? And you have all these cables to rummage through. So why give yourself the headache? Just make it much easier for yourself.
Hold on a second. I saw something I
What
didn't
did you
like.
see? I didn't do anything.
No, that's me.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah.
Cool.
There you go. That should fix that. And boom. You're going to see the logo pop up for a quick second. Whee. How much time do you think we have left on the build?
We can save another 20 minutes, 20, 30?
All right, perfect. That is a sweet spot right now for us.
No
We're
worries.
going to aim for that
Okay.
30-minute finish.
You got it, dude.
So if you want, I can handle a lot of the talking and the questions. I'll only ask you if something really important pops
Sure,
up.
no problem. I'm gonna go Black Ops.
All right. All right, Peasy is going to be muted, but we're going to have him focus heavily on wrapping it up.
If you can hear me, what I'll do, I'll just call out to you what I'm doing so you can explain to them.
All right, perfect.
Right now, I'm just tying up the 24 pin to clean it up into the system.
All right.
Get the power supply mounted.
So just a little background. Peach is currently just cleaning up the cables and adding some zip ties to make everything, tighter, cleaner, and more organized in that current corner of the neuron. Actually, can we adjust it so we can see what you're doing, or? Yeah, he's gonna adjust really quick. Are we building in the bubble like the NBA? I guess. I mean, I got my mask with me though, so I walk out from this room, I'm wearing my mask. Actually, funny, I ran into Kevin, Origin PC CEO, in the office, and he didn't recognize me because of my mask, and I had my hair tied back, and he's like, "Who are you?" I was like, "Oh no, it's me." Who is this guy? So.
Okay. Well, what direction do you want me to use? Move the.
Basically, if you're working with your hands, just show us where you're at.
Okay.
There you go. Cool.
So right now, I'm focused on this right over here.
Yeah, so he's focusing on that area, just organizing the cables there. So one thing I will like to mention, that blue cable is the USB cable that connects from the top of the neuron where the USB ports are. Actually, on the bottom. I'm thinking the top because I have at the bottom.
Well, remember, on this case itself, it depends on the customer's preference. The case, ideally, this is by default. This is the orientation.
Yeah, that's the
that
default.
system.
You
This
can
is default
rotate it.
orientation. But if the customer chooses to do so, maybe they want to put the system inside their living room, like as far as like for an entertainment center, then they're more than happy. They can set it this way.
Yeah, that's
So,
our case, by the way.
What's
Not
cool,
all every case
yes,
can do
correct.
that.
What's cool about this is if you notice our logo is actually sitting upright. But if the customer, by default, wants a system like this, they can simply rotate the logo, and the logo sits upright like that as well. Doesn't matter which direction. So they can set it in one or two directions if
Yeah.
they choose to do so.
And again, our case. All right, PJ, go.
No
go,
prob-
go, go. Go, go, go. Me and a man bun? No. I just had it in a ponytail. Ponytail. Hold on, I'm doing a quick research here. When can I get a replacement logo with your face on it? I had my alternate skin on. I don't know if the thick 3 can actually fit in this case because I think it should, but it depends on the length because this is a small mid-tower case. It's not a normal size mid-tower. Hold on, I'm gonna check the length really quick here.
Are we talking about a 3-slot GPU?
No, it's a dual, I believe. It's just the length of it. I'm checking. I'm looking it up just to answer the question really quick.
I do know that an EVGA 2070 Super, which is a 3-slot, we have one of those running in our event systems, as a matter of fact, and it does fit without
Yeah, it
problem.
does fit in this case, so I think it should fit. I'm looking at it. Nah, it'll fit. 12.4 inches. PJ?
Excuse me?
12.4 inches?
I believe so.
Yeah, it'll fit. Yeah. No, you're good. Hopefully that answers that question.
We are going to mount the cooler.
All right. Well, we're gonna swap cameras. Actually, no. You're gonna do the fans first or the cooler?
Yeah, let me mount this in
All
first,
right,
and then I'll
you
do the cooler.
fans. So the fans are ready to go. He already preset that, but we're gonna get to the cooler. I'm gonna jump to the other camera so you can see the cooler in all its glory. And then we can talk about thermal paste, which is very important. I know that we've kind of just like didn't really have to touch the thermal paste at this point, but we're gonna use a pre-applied thermal paste on the cooler and talk about your other options that you can do and what you can do on your end. Bloop. Gonna make some adjustments here. Thermal pasta. There we go. Perfect. All right, PJ, I'm gonna request a mute.
Mm-hmm.
Are you breathing in your mic?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there we go. All right. I'm also open to questions. You guys have been like so quiet in terms of watching. This is your opportunity because time is going to be running out real quick.
Yeah. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.
This is like the best time
More than
'cause,
happy
like-
to answer any questions you may have.
because we're in this lull. So if you got anything, by all means, shoot. Why doesn't PJ have one of those screwdriver drills? He does.
Screwdriver drill.
Yeah, it's right there.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the actual.
Oh, that's a tiny one? Yeah.
It's a drill itself,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
like the
it's a
length of a
screwdriver,
screwdriver.
yeah.
It's more of a preference. I don't like the way I'm holding it in my hand. The drill itself is
I know
again
you
like I
have
said.
them
I'm
in the
just
back,
so
though.
I'm so accustomed to using this. I've been using a drill itself for like since I've been here, and I've tried using the other ones, and yeah, they're a little efficient, but I just don't like the position I have to hold it in order
Yeah.
to use it.
Thank you. Any upgrades for personal systems plans? For me, I might get another SSD. M.2 SSD to add to my system. I'm running out of space, which is crazy. I have a 2 terabyte SSD. Actually, no, the 1920 Force MP510, the Corsair SSD. Fantastic. I love it. But games are just getting so big. It's crazy. I've had to delete a couple games, but I don't really play those games, so I just got rid of them. So SSD for me. Graphics and CPU, I don't need to touch that, but storage for me. Recommended cooling for AMD CPUs. The Corsair all-in-one coolers are very solid. You can also go with a premium heatsink option. You can find those pretty much anywhere. I'm not gonna name brands, but if you look up reviews, you'll probably find the higher-end heatsinks if you prefer that kind of cooling. But definitely all-in-one cooling units or a high-quality heatsink. Can you use the one that's included in the box? Yeah, but I'd recommend those all-in-ones.
The AMD ones are actually pretty good.
They're good, but for me, I like to push the CPU, so I'd like to
The ones that are
add that
always
cooler.
iffy for me every time I look at them are the Intel ones. I'm always like, I don't even know if I want
Yeah,
to add
don't worry.
non-overclocked.
Eugenia says, you guys are answering questions before even we need to ask them. I guess we're doing a good job there, right? We're covering a lot of stuff. I'm trying to think of things that I would want to know if I were trying to build a piece, but I'm covering a lot of bases here. But if I miss something, feel free to call me out. Be like, hey man, you forgot about this thing. But I'm doing my best there. Teams? No teams. Team everything. I use everything. I use everything here in the office. So it's like, I don't have any allegiances. I don't have corporate allegiances, I should say. I had to delete Team Fortress 2. Mnemonic syntax coming in with some hard facts. Can you talk about what's more important, CPU or GPU? Are there specific programs to cater to each? Oh man, bacon. You just open up a book here. So when you're using the CPU or the GPU on your system, certain programs benefit more than others. Games obviously benefit the most with the GPU because graphics are central to games, it's the visuals that you're seeing. While the CPU is really important for more professional applications, or if you're doing multiple things at once with your computer, i.e. if you're using Chrome, streaming, playing, or if you're multitasking, a good CPU is going to help out a lot. So GPU is definitely more gaming side or games graphics related. Or actually, if you're a professional and you use I just blanked out anything from any AutoCAD or anything like that, 3D rendering, you'll need a good GPU. You don't need like a super high-end one to at least get started, but typically college students like to go with the gaming GPU just because guess what? It lets you play and do schoolwork. So, and a good CPU is always good, or a good go-to. I always recommend for if you like to game at all on PCs, go with the Ryzen 5 and up. Or if there's a 5 in it, go with that and up. Check your messages. Oh, did I get some messages? Let me check Twitch. Did I get whispers? Let's see here. No, I didn't get anything here. Did I? Nah. Do you guys prefer liquid cooling or air cooling? I'm going to say heat sinks. I like both. I'm not going to lie. I think there's benefits to both. The heatsink, you don't have to worry about really replacing it anytime soon. I mean, that said, all-in-one liquid coolers can last an incredibly long time. The sweet spot, I think, is around like 4 to 5 years, depending on how much you use your computer, but that's a really long time. Actually, even longer if you treat your computer right. I like them both. There's pros and cons to both. I feel like you can get more performance out of the liquid cooler, but that said, some heat sinks, serious heat sinks can get you some pretty good performance. Can we get this case in Germany? You can't buy the case by itself. You can only get it if you order the system at originpc.com. But if you do want to check out some cases, go ahead and check out Corsair's site. They have a ton of cases available.
Which we actually use on our line.
Can you cool the PC with milk? That's a good question. I'll take that question. So when you're building a PC, the liquid that's used to cool the components, whether it's a CPU or you're using custom cooling, is a specific liquid that's designed for the best possible heat dissipation. So you can't use water per se.
You use distilled water.
You can use, I mean, you can, but it's recommended to use the ones that are designed for liquid cooling because they're the best for transferring heat. Now, can you use milk? I don't recommend it because guess what? Milk gets old and smelly. But there's specific liquids that you can put into a cooling unit, a custom cooling unit to cool your system. The all-in-one liquid cooling systems already have liquid already inside. You don't have to worry about refilling it. It's already all in there. Recommended RAM for Chrome, 128 gigabytes or more. Oof. Oh, let me adjust the camera here because PJ's. No, you guys can see it, right? No, you guys are good. I was worried. I thought the angle's in the other one. No, you're good, PJ. You can play Crisis on a cell phone. You can play Crisis on the Switch.
Right now to the hubs. And you make sure you gotta do it in numerical order. So, just like the IQ settings you guys see on the Corsair systems, we try to, we also make sure that the order of lighting goes in the same direction. So in this case, our case, the RGB fan setup is gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4. On the hub itself, you gotta make sure that you put them in order.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, and then 4 over here at the top. You can't plug them randomly into any hub. They're all daisy chained together. So if you only had 3 fans and you put 6, 4, and 2, none of them will light up because 1 powers 2, 2 powers 3, and so on and so forth. They're all linked together. So everything has to be in order. You can put all of them out of orders. If you have them 1 through 4 and they're all out of place, they'll all work, but they won't work simultaneously like IQ is going to allow it to if you don't put them in the the correct order they're supposed to go.
So what you're talking about, like if there's a light effect that you're trying to do,
correct,
the light won't go in a smooth fashion. Like let's say you want the light to go from bottom to the top, it won't work in that way. Corsair's actually they have a good covering all that on their manuals. And also on their website, if you need more information on the IQ settings.
Cool lighting effect, you want to make sure that you have the light.
Yeah, you can't just go all willy-nilly plugging in your cables. So.
Did you say willy-nilly?
Willy-nilly.
Willy-nilly.
Devil Dawes mentions, I'm going to build a system Ryzen 9 3900X. Any suggestions on a motherboard? I'm looking at the ASUS Prime X570 Pro, but I don't know a lot of motherboards. ASUS's motherboards are pretty good. You can check them out. There's, of course, a bunch of brands you can choose from. But my recommendation when you're choosing a motherboard is making sure that it has the features that you want it to have, right? So when I say that, I mean, does it have enough USB ports that you need? Does it support the like higher end overclocking, enough M2 slots. Like there's all these little features that come with the motherboard that you want to make sure that you're good with. If you're going with the 3900X, I definitely recommend the higher end motherboard just because you have that higher end processor. But there's nothing wrong with going like a mid tier $200 range motherboard from ASUS or any other company. I mean, the Prime is a very solid motherboard. Don't get me wrong. You can't go wrong with that motherboard. It's really, really good. And it's a 570, so you're good. Again, I think features is the one thing you want to keep an eye out for the motherboard. And typically, motherboard companies do a really good job at telling you what that motherboard supports. So, for me, I think my thing was, does it come with enough USB ports, and is the IO shield already included? And it was, so I went with that motherboard that I got.
You want to take note that the Corsair H100i does come with fans, but since we're utilizing the SP120s, we don't need to use these.
Yeah, we're gonna put those to the side. So we're doing a little extra here. Normally, if with the build, actually Corsair, some of the CPU coolers on Corsair site do include RGB on the fans already. I'm just gonna do a quick check here, just to confirm. I believe, where are they? The Platinum. So this one, I'm gonna jump to the screen really quick just to show you guys. So if you see on Corsair site, we're looking at the H100i RGB Platinum SE liquid CPU cooler. So these fans are actually let me confirm which fans are they? It'll tell me right here. The LL. These are the LL fans, LL120 RGB fans. So these actually already come with it. But we went with the H100i RGB Pro XT. Actually, that brings me a good question. Let me jump to the build and ask PJ this really quick.
Sure.
Can you mix and match Corsair fans?
No.
No. Yeah, that's a short one. That's a short answer. You can't.
No.
So it's preferred to have the same series of fan on your system, because
Correct.
if you don't, then IQ gets all funky.
Imagine, like, put it this way. Let's say if you do have IQ, have you ever not put it on the correct setting for the correct fan you have?
Yeah.
If you have LL fans or QL fans and you put it on LL, did you notice that most of the lighting itself, it doesn't function like it's supposed to?
Yeah.
That's exactly why you can't
There
sync
you
them
go.
together.
So it's definitely preferred to try to get a uniform fan look. So if you were to get that CPU cooler that I just showed on screen, you want to make sure you get LL fans for the full LL fans for your system. So just one thing to know. Again, RGB is not that important. It's just a more of aesthetics thing, to be honest. But I feel like a lot of new builders like to add at least a little bit of RGB. I think fans are probably the best way to do it. You can do it with RAM too, but I think fans are the best way. You can also add RGB strips as well. Corsair actually has some really cool RGB strips on their site. I actually bought them myself for my build, and it made it light up. Actually, we use them on our systems too, sometimes too, PJ. Do you remember that kit?
Which one?
The RGB strip kit? I mean, I'm looking at the name.
Is it the one we use with the remote?
Lighting Node Pro RGB lighting controller with the light strips. I'm gonna jump to it. This is extra, by the way.
RGB strips?
This one.
Oh yeah, that's what I was showing you right now. The new RGB hub. I don't need that. That what you just showed, we don't need that anymore.
Yeah, but this includes the cables, or the strips, I should say. I'm gonna jump to the screen so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So this is what I got for my system.
Yeah, it essentially works the exact same way as this one. It's just this is an updated version of that hub.
Yeah. But it has the strips. That's the reason I got it, because it came with the strips.
That's the cool thing about that one, is that's channel 1 and channel 2. So essentially, you can still use that. You can still use that.
Yeah, I have both the Node Core and the Lighting Node Pro in my system. All right, that's enough of that. I'm getting too much into RGB, but we're focusing on just a good old PC build. Sorry, guys, I got a little off tangent there. But RGB is an option.
Getting carried away, folks.
RGB is an option.
All right, so
I can talk a little more right here. So in this, we're adding the H100i cooler right now. The cool thing about the H100i cooler is that it comes with female heads for the fans. So you don't have to plug the top fans into the board.
That's really cool.
The hub itself is going to power everything. You plug a micro USB into it with the USB, which they provide for you, and you plug this directly into the motherboard itself.
Yeah.
Once you do that and you power the system on, when the system's up and running, IQ will automatically recognize that this thing is plugged in.
Yep. So IQ will recognize the 4 fans and the CPU cooler when you boot it up. It'll be like, hey, you got all these IQ devices hooked up. Nice.
Say, hey, you got some cool lighting effects on these fans. You want to make it even cooler?
Yep.
That's exactly what it's telling you.
So it's
this
an
isn't really this.
it's an extra connector, because typically if you're going with like a no frills CPU cooler, you just, you know, you plug in. Actually, can you show the other cables that's included for the CPU cooler?
What?
Because you know how the fan connector? Just show it one more time.
This?
No. The cables coming out
on
from
the pump?
yeah.
Oh, okay, these.
Yeah, so he's going to connect the fans to that.
Yep. I'm going to connect this to this. Boop.
And then the other cable on the CPU.
Which is this one here. Or are you talking about the other cable?
Yeah,
This one
the other
here?
one. Yeah, that one.
This
yeah.
plugs into the hub, and this plugs directly into the USB, which gives this entire thing
Power.
control. No, it doesn't give it power. It gives it syncs the pump with the motherboard, so IQ can be recognized. You already have power through here. This is your.
That's what I was
SATA
looking for.
power.
That's
This
what I
is
was
your
looking
SATA
for.
power
Yeah,
port.
SATA power. That's what I was looking
This
for.
one
The SATA
gives
power.
the pump power. This here you plug into the you plug in as well to regulate the speed of the pump.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're running benchmarks or overclock, you're playing a really stressful game that's going to be CPU based intense. This will ramp up the speed of the pump itself, so it's consistently keeping the CPU cool.
So if you're wondering about all these connectors, your motherboard and your motherboard manual will tell you where they all are, by the way. Because several devices, including the CPU cooler, have all these connectors. You're probably like, where do I connect it? Guess what? Your motherboard most likely will have it. If you have a modern motherboard, you're good. So, Marinar asks, should pump always run at 100%?
If it's optional if you want, but you know you gotta take into consideration the longevity. The longevity of your pump in that sense. Because if you're running it full blast all day, every day when you're playing, it's gonna burn out faster than normally.
Mm-hmm.
So take that into consideration as well. If you and your buddy got the exact same pump, but he's got his plugged into the board, so it regulates and controls, his is gonna last much longer than yours.
Yeah, I would prefer doing the auto regulation, so the system knows like, oh, you're going hard on a game.
Full blast.
Let's go pump it up.
On the old 3-pin pumps, I would say just plug it directly into your back in the day, I would say just plug it directly into a Molex, power it on full blast. Those are the first gen ones. Now that
those are the older ones.
Yeah,
Real
now
old.
that you can control the speed of it, why would you want to do that? You know, they do that so it lasts longer for you.
All right, I'm gonna leave you to it. You're almost done. So, all right, we're gonna have PJ rock it over there because he really is almost done. Once the CPU cooler, the fans are in the CPU cooler, and then the CPU cooler is gonna be mounted on the top of the system. He's gonna attach the actual pump units to the CPU itself. And then, again, the thermal paste is already pre-applied. Actually, we can talk about thermal paste really quick. So you have multiple options with thermal paste. This is already pre-applied. It's already good to go. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Yeah. So all he has to do is just put it on because the thermal paste is on there. And you're probably wondering, why do I need thermal paste? Because that's how heat transfers from your CPU to the actual copper of your cooling device, whether you're going with a heatsink or an all-in-one cooling unit. There's actually, let me see if I can find a diagram really here, quick to demonstrate CPU heat dissipation, so you guys know what I'm talking about. Let's see, Wikipedia, do you got a good image? You do not. Trying to find one really quick here. You're muted. PJ's about to say something really quick
When
for
you
you
mount
guys.
the cooler into the system, I know that Corsair does provide you with all the screws and everything you need to mount it to the top of the case, but you got to remember, we're not working with a Corsair case. So in this sense, we have the exact same type of screw that Corsair would use to mount the pump at the top, but the difference is if you notice that they have a button head, ours is a flat head because our case itself has rivets at the very top. So when you use the flathead screw, it makes the entire top flush. You don't want to have a bump at the top of the case. I'll show now once I do it. Bring it over here at the top. So this same screw, this same little screw is the exact same thread as this.
Mnemonic mentions copper plates of the cooler and the plate of the CPU have tiny imperfections where it's not complete match up. Using thermal plates allows a better contact with the copper plate and CPU. That's a cleaner way of explaining it than I just did. Thank you, Mnemonic. But he's right. So if you look into like the molecules of the actual copper plate, even though it appears smooth and flat, if you like really like zoom in, you'll see that there's like tiny little imperfections. And I'm talking like a microscope, like a really high-end microscope to look into those parts. The reason you put the thermal paste is because it fills in those gaps and allows heat to transfer over from one place to another safely. You don't want air pockets in there either, because if there's air pockets, then that's a mess. But typically, if you just put it on your CPU and do that, well, not like that, but basically once everything's flushed together, you're good. PJ's laughing because I did like a loud clap. So. And how much thermal paste? I prefer to do the P method, and then just, you know, once you apply the two pieces together, whether it's a heatsink or an all-in cooler, it takes care of itself. Basically, when you press it together, it just evens out. I don't put too much, but sometimes people, you know, go overboard. Or you can use it pre-applied. For this demonstration, we're using the pre-applied. P size drop. Yeah, that's the way I do it. Thank you, Eugenia. Haha. Yeah, I know. She's just laughing. Yeah. I'm catching up with questions. I missed some questions over here. I was looking at Twitch chat. Dust. Is it preferable to build with your bare hands, or can you wear latex gloves? Don't wear latex gloves. Just do it with your bare hands.
I mean, not saying you can't do it, but it's a little uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable, and then the other thing is your hands start to sweat internally because you're wearing latex gloves, and it's much better just to have your fingers in the texture. If you're worried about your hands getting sweaty, then, you know, dry off, have a towel. Don't worry too much about it. Is there a way to safely disinfect a motherboard? I got a free one from a friend and noticed dead cockroaches in the box. Hold on, you're muted, PJ.
You can use rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, rubbing alcohol is a good
does not
option.
damage
Yeah.
the motherboard. You can wipe it off with that.
Yeah, but don't pour it like a whole
Correct.
bunch of.
Use it. Get I would say use a soft paper towel.
Yeah.
And just
No, I don't even think a paper towel
apply a
because it
little
has
bit,
cotton.
or even a Q-tip as
Not
well.
cotton,
And you can wipe
paper.
it off with a Q-tip.
I think, yeah, Q-tip or cotton is your best bet. And make sure there's no like leftovers too if you use any of that. But yeah, rubbing alcohol is pretty good. I use that to clean my components if necessary. Mnemonic brings up a good point. If you ever need to RMA anything, save everything. So when you build your PC, don't just toss everything out. Like,
Yes.
keep your boxes, keep your cables, keep everything.
Agreed.
Because once you finish building your PC, you need to turn on and test everything. And if something is broken, you need to RMA it. So RMA is, you know, the return process. So you want to send them everything. So keep an eye out for that. Ooh, Jay's 2 cents recommends coffee filters to leave less fibers. That's actually a good recommendation. I haven't seen that vid, but that's actually that's smart. Yeah, my concern with cotton is the fibers that they leave behind. So I'm really careful with cotton if I use it. Actually, that Mironar brings up a good point. With PC building, there is an incredibly large community and a whole pool of resources that you can find online for your builds. We're doing our best here to give you a good, like, again, from 0 to 100. But if you go on to YouTube and you go to trusted sources, not just random people. When I say trusted sources, I know we're fans of Linus, Jay's 2 Cents, Bitwit, Paul's Hardware. Just so many resources. Personally, I've used Paul's Hardware. Paul's Hardware has a really cool build PC guide that he has. He actually keeps updating it. So if this is enough for you, there's a ton of resources online that can help you get going. So I know probably people in chat are probably shouting at their own favorites as well. But those are just some off the top of my head. So I hope we're doing a good job for you guys today, though, because normally we don't do our live builds like this is like a step-by-step guide almost, just covering every single step. We just go for it and just answer any questions.
Yeah. Before Lewis has even completed, throwing off the specs of the system, and he's like, well, let's get started with the build. I've already got the motherboard halfway done, and I'm just starting to mount it into the case. So.
Oils on the finger don't impact the components. No. Although I wouldn't go touching the face of the CPU, if that's what you mean.
I haven't. If you notice, I haven't touched the face of the CPU.
Yeah, that's one thing. You can touch everything just fine, but if you're anything that's like a connector or anything, I would just try to avoid touching that if possible. At least with the computer parts, you should be fine.
Yeah, if you guys were paying, if anybody's been noticing, see what I did was I replaced the bracket right now with the AMD bracket.
Oh,
the AMD bracket comes with hooks. So you want to pre-thread it first. You don't want to screw it all the way down and make it super tight because you need to have some play on it. You need to have these hook onto the top and bottom of where the CPU is.
Yeah. The bracket brings up a good point. So Corsair is cool enough that they provide the brackets for both Intel and AMD chips. For this one, PJ just swapped the chips, or the bracket for the Intel. I'm fumbling words. The AMD bracket. I'm sorry, guys.
That's just as bad as me pulling It's just as bad as pulling an AMD CPU out with an Intel clamshell. I guess we're even, Lewis.
Yeah, we're even. English is just wrong. Just toss it out the window. Sorry, guys.
I gotta thank Nubonic Syntax. He's the one that brought that up earlier in the chat. I saw him. He goes, "We're gonna see a AMD CPU with an Intel clamshell."
Yep. So yeah, just keep an eye. Again, the manuals for the CPU cooler and the motherboard will let you know the appropriate bracket. Modern hardware typically comes with the correct brackets. I know older hardware sometimes they don't. You have to buy it separately, but modern hardware typically comes with the necessary components for your mounting. So y'all messed up on that one. Hey man, it's late. Oh man, we gotta speed it up. All right, PJ, do your thing. Go ahead and mute, and I'll handle the talking here. So PJ's gonna be doing some of the cabling from the CPU cooler and having it wired down. So he's gonna be taking care of that. But we're at the home stretch, I want to say, because we've got the cooler to finish off, the power supply, just connecting everything, putting the shroud on top of it, and then the GPU. I think the GPU might be the last thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the GPU is the last thing. So.
For me, it's always the last thing. I want to have as much space. Like, again, you want to acquire as much space as you possibly can. You want to be able to have your hands in the system. If not,
yeah.
What's the point?
So PJ's mentioning how the space is really important in your system, and since the Neuron's such a small mid-tower case, space is really important. So if you can see closely, but PJ's essentially measuring the distance, how much cable he needs from point A to point B. So he's essentially tying up the cable he doesn't need, so he knows how much cable it goes from the top of the case to the bottom of the case where the connector is. If you're wondering what he's doing right there, because like, wait a second, what is he doing like that? Because remember, he has to tuck it in the back. So.
Something's everywhere. There's cables hidden on these systems that you wouldn't even know that they were.
Gamers Nexus. Oh yeah, Gamers Nexus. Oh man, I like to joke on these streams that Gamers Nexus is my cousin because he has really long hair too. He provides incredibly in-depth videos. Highly recommend you check him out. If you really like PC hardware, you want to know more, he goes super in-depth with anything he covers. So give him a watch over on YouTube. I'm catching up with comments. Sorry, guys.
Hey, how did Mnemonic know I used to braid my hair? Like, for serious, I did.
PJ mentions he did braid his hair in the past. Chicken Fruit on YouTube asked, does the IQ all-in-one cooler allow you to change the graphics on the mount? On the actual, when you say graphics, can you clarify? Are you talking about the RGB lighting or like the actual physical Corsair logo? Because there are some coolers out there that actually have like a little LCD screen. ASUS actually has a cooler that does have that. But it's just currently just RGB.
Is it Cooler Master? I think NZXT makes one too.
Yeah, some of the other companies do that. Is there a link to this build that he's doing specifically? No, but we do have the parts list. I'll bring it up really quick for you, like about a quick 20 seconds. If you want to take a look. Sorry, I just got to this question just now. So take a quick peek, and the specs are also going to be scrolling in the bottom of the screen. So you want to take a quick snapshot of it. Just an idea of, again, this is not for anyone in particular. We're just building the PC to showcase, you know, the step-by-step of building a PC. All right, now I'm catching up over here. When's a big O live build? We did one a couple weeks ago. If you want to, Sharon, if you want to just take a look at our previous builds, you can see, I know the Completionist, we did a big O live build, and then Sheriff Strafe, we did a big O live build, if you want to take a look. With the Completionist, we already had the console already in. With Sheriff Strafe, the console was not in. So if you want to see both methods, you can watch them both or take a look.
If I had to recommend one, I would recommend the Completionist one.
Yeah, the Completionist is definitely a good showcase for the big O.
That one's a better showcase.
I'm just catching up with, I think, all the comments. I think we're good. Let me zoom up over here. All right, we got a question over here. Perfect. I'm all the way to the top. Got a pre-built computer with a GT 1030. I want to upgrade to RX 580 and have 230 watt power supply. That power supply is very, very low. I would consider upgrading the power supply if possible, if you're able to. My concern with the pre-builts, at least, is sometimes they make it really hard for you to upgrade a power supply. Because sometimes they use cheaper power supplies. I'm not going to name any names, but sometimes they do. And you'll know when you see like a brand that you've never seen before in the power supply, and you're like, what is this? This isn't Corsair. This isn't, you know, someone else that I recognize. So you got to be careful with that. Because you do have a 230 watt power supply, and you want to upgrade to the RX 580, no, you have to go to at least 400 watt or more. Actually, to be honest, 650 or more.
Yeah, I'm with Lewis 100%. If you're trying to future-proof your system and you're literally going with upgrades, minimum at least go 650.
Yeah.
Safe side 100%, 750 all day.
Yeah, but I think with the build that he has, because he has a 1030 graphics card, I would definitely consider the either a 500 watt and then go with the RX 580, or even go with the 5500 XT, the one.
I can tell you a 450 watt will power 1080, no problem.
Yeah, it can. But if you want feature proof, definitely a 600 and up.
Yep. 100%.
There is a fly that just got in my face. I don't know if you guys saw it in the camera, but it was kind of like buzzing right over here. And that's the reason I rose my hand. I was like, I'm about to slap the fly.
Where is he?
He's gone now. I'm looking at the light. I can't even see him anymore. It's gonna become like that one Breaking Bad episode where Walt and Jesse are trying to kill the fly. A Breaking Bad reference for those of you in the chat. I don't know if you've seen the show. It's a great show.
Mr. Lewis?
Power supply's going in. Let's go ahead and angle the camera down so people can see what you're doing with the power supply.
Sorry about that.
So again, we were talking earlier, the power supply is modular, so PJ was fortunate enough that he didn't have to plug in the cables already. He can plug in cables right now, which is what he's about to do. So he's about to mount the power supply. And to mount the power supply, if you look in the back of the case, actually, can you angle it down a little bit more because people can't see it? There you go. There's certain points right there, he's pointing them out, where he needs to properly mount the power supply. Actually, there's some at the bottom too, right? Are you going to mount from the bottom? It's only from the side.
It's only from the back side
Okay.
over here, that's it. Some, like the Corsair cases, like the power supply itself has different mount locations.
Yeah.
So some of the Corsair cases have double holes. Like you can actually double them up. So if you want to have more security, you can add those too.
Yeah, because I know for my case, I had to mount from the bottom too.
And then when I mount it, I crisscross it.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I think I do that with almost anything, to be honest, is doing the crisscross method. And actually, with an Intel chip, there's 4 points, so it's like a box. So what you want to do with that is you want to go from one bottom corner and then just opposite that.
And notice how I'm not not just going ham and tightening them up 100%.
Yeah. And the reason I mentioned the Intel chip, because sometimes, you want to go with one or the other, but the way an Intel chip versus an AMD chip is mounted is very different. We went with an AMD for this build, but you'll notice that they are different, so that's why we highly recommend you check out the manuals or guides on how to properly mount. If we had more time, infinite time, I'd be more than happy to showcase how that's mounted as well, but because there are differences between the two.
All right.
I got some more questions in the chat from me. Let me catch up over here.
Let me just make this as simple as possible. Al, now that everything's already been put in the system, minus the video card, that's the last cable we have to put in, everything is pretty much just simply plug right into the power supply. That's what makes doing this and the video card so much easier when you're building a system. So now I don't have to worry about plugging everything in essentially to where it needs to go. Everything's already been done.
Yep.
Power supply's mounted. Plug the power supply in.
And look how easy this is. It's gonna blow your mind.
Let me see. Let me get the one other cable I'm gonna need, and then we're golden.
This is a good demonstration of the benefits of a modular power supply, because I have friends asking me like, oh, should I go with modular or should I go with the one with the cables are included? There's pros and cons with both. Typically with the cables, like sometimes there's like it's partial modular, if that makes sense. So like the CPU and the motherboard cables are already like pre-connected, so you can't remove them. But it's cheaper. Oh, the fly's back.
One that I can actually recommend that's really good is that I have used. I actually put it on. I made a PC for my brother, as a matter of fact, recently, and I used the TX750.
Yeah.
TX750
I actually use that one
really
too.
good power supply.
I use that one. I use that one too for my travel PC.
It's like half modular, so
Yep.
it comes with the. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's a 24 pin. It has the 8 pin connected to it, and I think the PCIe, and then everything else, the SATAs and everything else is the SATA and Molex ones are.
I think you
are
might be
modular.
right. But I know for sure the CPU and the motherboard for sure.
Okay, so you get your SATA power, and you plug it into here. There's one plug, and then you have your secondary one, which this is the one that plugs the this is for the RGB hub,
Mm-hmm.
and then that gets plugged in here.
That's the SATA, by the way.
Yeah, this is SATA power. This is preferred.
So
No
that's
offense, Corsair. I know it's not you, but I can't stand Molex, and I'm pretty sure every other PC enthusiast or builder can agree with me 100%. Molex drives us crazy. We want to bang our heads into the wall if we have to
it's
sometimes.
very thick.
Why do they not want to get plugged in? And then after so many years of all the new technology, I can honestly say that I think SATA power is so much better.
I like SATA.
Plug and play, done, one and done. So SATA power is already plugged in. This goes here. The power supply is actually keyed as well. That's your 6-pin.
Yeah,
And
so
then-
you'll see the different pins on the motherboard, on the power supply itself.
Yes.
Actually, can we try to zoom in a little bit more? There you go.
Let me do
Can't
this
turn
instead.
it.
Let me do this instead. I got one more thing I just remembered. I got one last step.
We don't have to
almost forgot.
show. I don't want to show you working or plugging it in. I just want to show how the back of the or that front part of the power supply looks like, so you
Yeah,
can see all the connectors.
We still got to plug this thing in.
The USB cable.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Peter's currently plugging in the USB cable to the CPU cooler.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm gonna answer some questions really quick from chat. Do graphics cards normally come with the same amount of display ports available, or is that something you consider in purchasing a specific GPU model? So it depends on the GPU. Normally, I think nowadays is almost like a consistency. You'll see 3 display ports and 1 HDMI port, and then 1 USB-C port. But you have to check the graphics card itself.
It's usually HDMI or display.
Yeah.
don't
Display
even
ports becoming more and more popular.
I don't even
guess
think
what?
they're
High
adding
frame rates-
DVI ports anymore. I
No,
think
DVI
they're
is
just fading away, right?
gone.
And that was like the closest thing you could get to like.
My girlfriend's ASUS RX 580 only has 1 DisplayPort connection. Yeah, it depends on the GPU. Oh, good luck. It's Griff X. I always say good luck and congratulations if someone's completed a PC build. I know we're here at Origin PC and we want, it'd be awesome if everyone bought Origin PCs, but we also respect the fact that people built their own PCs.
Heck yeah. The guys
So-
here, the majority of the guys that work for Origin PC are enthusiasts themselves. They come here and they build all day long, and then they go home and they game on the PC that they built themselves.
Yeah.
Some of them have never built a PC before, and they're excited to learn that. And when they gain that experience here, they go home and they build their own PC for themselves. So we always encourage and recommend everybody, you know, if you've never done it, try it. We want you to know what you're doing, or, you know, to learn. Because if at any point in time you do decide, you know what, maybe you know what you're doing, but you decide you want to go with a boutique because, you know, we know what we're doing. And you can always, that's another cool thing about Origin PC systems too, you don't void the warranty by putting your own hands in the system.
Yeah.
So if you want to mess with the system, if you want to upgrade it, you want to tinker with it, you can do that. If you want to upgrade your video card, you don't have to send us your entire PC to do the upgrade. All you have to do is, I know that we do have, I don't know if we still call it the Evolve upgrade.
Yeah, we still offer
Okay,
it.
so the Evolve upgrade.
That's
for
an
example,
optional addition.
That's another optional addition for customers if they want a warranty. Let's say if you got a 2080 Ti and the new 30 series comes out and you want the new 30 series,
If
we
that's
will,
the
we
word
will
is.
buy back your original 2080 Ti at what it costs, at the cost at that, you know, for that time, and you pay for the difference of the new 30 series GPU. And what you can do with that is you send us the GPU. When we receive it, we mail you the new video card and you can install it yourself. You don't have to go through the whole procedure of sending it back to us and waiting for it to be done.
Again, that's an Origin thing. That's
Yes.
what we do. That's an option, by the way. It's you can add it to your
Evolve
order.
upgrade.
Yeah. Devil Dog asks, yeah or nay on buying extended warranties on PC parts? Depends on how, I guess, concerned you are. Me, I feel more comfortable with not buying it because I'm more familiar with PC hardware. So if I need to mess with something, I can do it myself. But if I were to buy warranties on something, I would probably buy it for the CPU. If there was any part that I had to buy a warranty on anything, either CPU and the motherboard. Everything else normally you're gonna upgrade over time. So
This is so satisfying.
all right, here comes the peel. Well, you didn't really make it as good as Henry Cavill, but you know we'll make do with what we can.
Wow. Wow, Lewis.
Oh man.
Here I am. I thought we were friends. Thought we had a thing going here. You know, like we're boys, but
Yeah.
we're not.
So Eugene also mentioned, so for those of you that are just tuning in or are watching, I guess, later, this video will also be available on our YouTube channel if you want to watch the full thing. So if you're watching on YouTube and you got to this point, wow. Wow. Just make a comment in the YouTube video if you actually got to this point and timestamp it. I'm watching you. Well, they need an 8 6-pin connector.
Yep, one single 8-pin connector on this GPU.
Yep. Do you know anything about new motherboard for Intel that's smaller? I don't know anything. I haven't read anything about it yet or seen videos on it yet.
Let's do this last. This is the last piece, Mr. Lewis.
Oh, man.
Here we go.
Y'all hiring Canada? We, no. We're based in Miami, Florida. But if you're interested in any career opportunities, you can visit Origin PC's website, and you'll see that we actually have. Actually, I'm going to jump to it right now, just to show you guys. PJ's going to screw in the shroud, but I'm going to jump to our website real quick. All right, let's go ahead and scroll to the bottom. So this is originpc.com. Customize your own PC here and all sorts of good stuff. But we're going to jump to the bottom, and you'll see it says careers. You just click on that, and you'll see our current openings. So, but yeah, we're based in Miami, Florida, if you're wondering. All right, back to the build. PJ's quite literally at the end game for this. So, because once that power supply shroud is mounted, it's just the GPU and boom. Are you gonna add a PCI slot or PCIe slot covers to the back?
Yeah, well, let's see if I have something I can actually utilize. I'll put those on.
Yeah, so you'll notice that there's some open PCIe slots. PJ says he's gonna look to see if he can get some. Normally, your case will include those, either already in the case or in a box or in a bag somewhere. That's so you can cover up any unused PCIe slots for a cleaner look. Is there an option to put a credit card hole in advance on a new GPU? No. You'll know if, normally if new GPUs or new hardware comes out, we make an announcement, for us at least, and you can place the order, and if the GPU is already there, you include the GPU in there, and the GPU is already in your system. We don't sell components by itself at Origin PC. We sell the full and complete system. If you want to buy your own GPU, you'd have to, go to individual graphics card sellers.
Hey, Lewis.
Yeah.
Do you remember when we had people when Bitcoin mining was
Oh
popular?
yeah, Bitcoin mining.
GPUs?
Yeah. People, this is a long, long time ago. It's a short story. When Bitcoin was becoming all the rage, sometime in 2017, people were actually buying our computers and just buying it for the GPU because we still got the MSRP prices, but the GPU prices were just going crazy. But yeah, that was not a fun time. The illest, or the first illest? I love a Neuron, just got recently, glad I watched this so I have some background knowledge how the PC works overall in case I need to deal with the parts. Thanks for the stream. No problem. Glad you're enjoying it. And again, if you need more information specifically with your Neuron, you always have access to the support team 24/7. Eugene also mentions that Corsair.com/careers on Corsair side. Will Origin ship extras with the PC in case you switch from a 3 to 2 slot GPU? Everything that, all the parts and all the extra components we include in the accessory box. On the upgrade option in regards to shipping. Now I'm confused. Just re-ask the question. I'll get to it. I'm trying to rapid fire questions here. You find that Corsair's PSU cables are fully mounted really stiff? They struggle. PJ has his own opinions. I think it's fine. You just have to stretch them out and kind of bend them. So.
What?
The Corsair cables with the power supply.
Cables?
Yeah.
Not a fan.
So I like to just
Sleeve
stretch them out.
cables? Different. I mean, but it's not just any.
It's almost. It's not just.
Cable company. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So PJ's is saying that it's almost every
Yeah, it's
company.
not just one specific company. They're just very difficult to manipulate and maneuver around. So
Yeah.
that's why it's just I just like easy sleeve cable. I guess. And then the other thing I would say is I would say I'm spoiled with it.
Hold on, you're muted. You're going to feel there, but don't worry about it.
I was
You're
just saying,
good.
it's easy for me to say, I'm not a fan of the bulk cables, but it's not just one particular company that doesn't make them better than the other. They're all like that.
Yeah.
But I can also go in just to say, and I'm guilty of being spoiled by it as well, because as being a former assembler down the assembly line, 90% of the customers who are purchasing systems are not going with sleeve cable or custom bulk cables. They're going with the sleeve cables. So they were much easier to use and manipulate and bend and twist, and it made building the systems much easier.
Yeah. Thank you. If you get a computer, could you open the PC and not void the warranty or no? It depends on the company. For us, we don't, we welcome it. But sometimes, I'm not going to name names again. There are most likely some companies out there that do void warranties if you do open up the PC. I don't know why they do that. It's kind of not cool. But I know a couple years ago, there were PCs like that. Actually, I remember with my laptop, there's one of those little labels that I opened it up and it said, if you open this, you're going to void the warranty. I'm like, I need to fix my laptop. What do you want me to do? So that company's not around anymore. That laptop's not around anymore, but I gave it more life. I gave it more life. All right, let me catch up with the questions. Other questions, the RX 580 better than... So if you're comparing GPUs, my recommendation is to check out the benchmarks. On YouTube, you'll find plenty of benchmark videos. Gamers Nexus is a fiend for benchmark videos. So if you want to check out his videos for graphics cards comparison, by all means. And also when some reviewers on across different websites, PC Gamer, PC Mag, whatever, they do benchmark comparisons as well. So you can see what GPU would be best for you. Because technically there are the best GPUs, but then you have to factor in the price and all these other things as well. Do you want ray tracing features? Do you just want a good affordable GPU to can run your favorite games? It depends. So definitely recommend checking out the benchmarks and seeing how the games run per the graphics card in your system. What is the best way to avoid sag on a GPU? That's a good question. For my personal build, I actually bought a sag preventer. That's not what they're called, but basically it's like a little mount that holds it up. I can ask PJ quick really here. What do you do prevent sag, PJ?
The GPU?
Yeah.
Before I screw it down, I try to I know it's not
Unmute.
100% efficient, but I try to hold it upwards as best as I can.
PJ, unmute.
I'm sorry, guys. I just try to hold the GPU up as best as possible, and then the other thing I can use too is take advantage of the actual cables that you're plugging it in to power the GPU as well. Sometimes I'll loop it under in this motherboard I can't do it with the GPU, but I'll loop the video card cable, the PCI cable under the GPU itself, and I'll find a little section where it's not going to obstruct the fan, and then I'll use a zip tie and tie it to one of the SATA ports and push up, and that'll allow the GPU
That's
to
a
stay
cool
level.
trick, actually. I didn't think about that. I got the little mount. This is all on Amazon. You can find good reviews on those. It looks cool.
The mounts are cool.
I've
never been a fan of them, but they work. But I mean, if that's what they're for, if they come with it, then by all means use it.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes that sag. The only one that we really get it really good on that we don't have to worry about is when we do our 90-degree orientations. They just perfectly just
but that's only exclusive to us.
Yes.
So.
Exclusive to us.
All right, let me catch up with the other questions here. Where am I? All right, side question. Would you recommend if I got income, buy custom cables, make it look and feel? If you have the extra money, sleeve cables are always a nice premium for your system.
But it's not going to make a difference.
It doesn't make a difference. I guess sometimes they look cool and it's a little bit easier, but you're fine with the cables that come with the power supply. Like what I did for my system, I only got sleeve cables for the GPU because I figured the GPU is the one cable that you're going to see.
Yep.
But everything else I just used the regular cables.
That works too. Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
Because I didn't want, why would I get all these cables that you're not going to see them?
Yes, there's some people that buy every single cable setup, and the only ones that you're physically seeing is the 24-pin, the GPU, and the 8-pin. And the 8-pin rarely, again, remember, it's always at the top left-hand corner. You may have your cooler. If you're locating your cooler at the top, you may never even see that cable. So if you do one of those, you buy a bulk set, do the entire bulk set, and you know the only 2 cables are going to be exposed, go to a website that makes those custom one-off cables, buy those, and then add those to the system. Just be sure that it's compatible with the power supply that you have, because obviously there's different brands. You don't want to get one that's not going to function properly.
All right. All right. I caught up with all the questions. We're good. PJ, showcase the system because we have another thing we got to go to real quick. Actually, if you want, just remove. Are you going to turn it on or? All right. PJ's going to turn on the system to show you guys how it looks. Yeah, he's going to open up the door so you guys can see the full and complete build because we got another thing to jump to real quick, so.
Is that a good view or should I go right there?
Actually, let me check the other camera, or you might have to adjust the camera angle. Let me check the other one. No, not that one. Actually, rotate it to the right. Remember how you had it earlier where the light was shining in? Not that way, the opposite way. No, don't mess with the light. The light's at a good location. I meant the camera and the system. That angle. There you go. And then rotate the system.
I got you.
There you go. That's what I wanted to see.
Right there.
Ta-da! Yay! The photography skills kicking in.
It's a little iffy. I don't know if you're getting enough light or not.
No, that's good. That's good. Yay! So he's gonna turn it on. Bloop. There it is, friends. A full and complete desktop built from nothing to this. Behold. So we got our fans, we got our CPU cooler, we got the RAM, we got the graphics card, the motherboard's mounted, everything is nice and clean. All the cables are in the bottom part, hidden by the shroud.
This is the part that really. Sorry, let me get my mic out.
Yeah, Mike's.
This
Peter's
is the
gonna
part that
add some commentary.
deceives most people when they build their system. When they power it on and it actually turns on, they're like, "Oh my god, it's awesome! It
This
works!"
is
and they
truly
get super
the best
stoked
part.
And they're happy and they're like, "Yeah!"
Yeah.
And then they go to power the system off and they're hitting the button, but what's going on? It won't shut off.
Yeah.
That means you may have a diagnostic issue with the system. Maybe your memory needs to be reseated. Maybe something needs to be reseated. Something's not functioning properly.
Yep.
It doesn't mean that the system is running right. That's where people start bouncing off the walls. There's certain things you could do. Maybe the memory needs to be reseated. Maybe you do have a bad memory slot. Maybe there's a DIMM slot on the motherboard itself that's not functioning properly. It could be so many different factors. But holding the power button onto the system to have it shut off doesn't indicate that your system posts. A post means when you power the system on and it turns on and runs, you let it run for a good minute or two, and then you're gonna normally power the button off again, like this.
There you go.
That's a post.
A post.
My systems always post. I'm talking smack. I'm talking
yeah,
smack.
he's
Everything I had a
reflexing
live build in here
again.
one day that it didn't. I was like, yeah. No,
you're trying to hide that. I remember that one.
I was like, no, it worked perfectly fine. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. All right, so let me do a quick final jump to the specs and a couple shout-outs, and we're done. But thank you guys for tuning in. Just a quick jump over here. So these are the specs of the system we just finished building, or I should say PJ, I just did all the talking.
Dude, mnemonic syntax. I had no idea that that's what post stood for. Thank you very much. Power on self-test.
All right, I'm going to do a quick run-through of the key specs here.
We learn something new every day.
Yeah, man. Origin PC Neuron case. Again, you can't get that case anywhere else, so that's why it's a little weird. Actually, PJ, can you go grab a computer and show the cables? We're going to do that cable showcase like probably 2 minutes really fast.
Oh, yeah, I'll go do that right now.
Yeah.
Let me get everything off the table.
Yeah. So PJ's going to clean up while I'm doing my wrap-up. The power supply is RM850X. That's a Corsair. 80 plus gold power supply. Motherboard, an ASUS Prime B550M. 550M. Haha. I got it. A CPU cooler. Corsair iQ H100i RGB Pro XT cooler. The CPU, an AMD Ryzen 5 3600X, 3.8 gigahertz with 6 cores, perfect for games and multitasking. The GPU is an ASUS ROG AMD Radeon RX 5500 XE with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Speaking of RAM, or actual RAM, 16 gigabytes of 3000 megahertz DDR4 RAM, Corsair Vengeance, 2.6, both 8 gigabytes each. And the fans around the case, Corsair SP120 RGB Pro fans. The OS SSD is a 1TB Corsair Force Series MP600 NVMe M.2 SSD, and the OS we're going with is Windows 10. Next up, got to give a couple shout-outs. Again, shout out to AMD for providing the CPU for this build. Again, thank you very much, AMD. You can check out the AMD Ryzen processors on their website and check out all the cool features that they include. Gotta love that core count, that performance. It's great. Great for gaming, great for streaming, great for VR, great for professionals. Next up, shout out to our friends over at ASUS for the GPU here. Actually, you can actually check out the Radeon RX 5500 XT, the same one we actually used in this case, or in this system, and learn more on ASUS's website. And they also provided the motherboard as well, that B550M/A. So again, you can check out all of ASUS's stuff on their website. Finally, again, we're doing this for the Corsair student program. You can check it out at corsair.com/student and sign up no matter what kind of student you are, whether you're really young, you're a student of life. You can go and check it out and learn more about their ambassador program and all the other cool digital events that they hold as well. Normally they host events in person, but you know, this pandemic's kind of changed the world, but that's how come we did this build a PC workshop for them and for you guys, for anyone watching as well. All right. Oof. And of course, the price for the system, let me jump to the specs one more time. My estimation based on Quantum's analysis is this is close to 1,300-ish. So it includes the fans in the case as well. So, whew, man. PJ just stepped out to grab another case because I really want to show you guys on a normal case so he can explain how he does it. Because the Neuron case is a little different. So, and once we're done with that, we're done because we got to jump to another thing there really quick. So, this is your chance, by the way, chat, if you want to get in some questions, because we got another thing to go to for those of you in the Corsair student program. You know what's up. I'm sorry you guys are waiting for so long, but I want to show everyone the cabling, because cabling is really, really important. Unfortunately, with the Neuron, it's a really unique system in the way it's cabled. So PJ should be back shortly, and we can do that showcase real quick. But I do like how the system came out, and the Neuron case is, again, a smaller mid-tower design. So it's very compact. There's no disk drive or front bays. And I prefer that style of design, and you'll see that more cases are adopting this method, because a couple of years ago, you'd see cases with bays. So are you guys in the Origin HQ right now? Yes, we are. So we're in Miami, Florida. We're in the HQ. So, what can cause my computer to restart after pressing the power button? That's odd. Do you think the connector? It could be the connector. If you built your own PC, there could be a possibility the connector might be in the wrong place. Because in the bottom of the motherboard, you know how there's the power. Actually, let me see if I can get a picture real quick. Power reset connector motherboard. Actually, if you Google it, there's a video on YouTube that helps demonstrate. Here we go. This is a good picture, but it's... Oh, man, I'm blowing it up, but I hope you guys can kind of sort of see it. Yeah, I think the power and reset might be swapped. But if you look in this picture, you'll see how there's like the power switch and the reset switch. So you need to look really closely at your motherboard and the manual to confirm that the connector's in the right place. This is typically on the bottom right of the motherboard, but again, the location might be different on other motherboards. DJ's here. All right, cool. We grabbed the Millennium to showcase you guys the cables. We're going to do the cable talk real quick and then we're done. All right, we're going to get the Neuron out of the way. Bye, Neuron. Boom.
This is one of our Origin event systems.
All right, so PJ is gonna just to do a quick walkthrough of the importance and the locations of the cables. Actually, we might have to pull the camera back because this case is bigger.
Yeah, this is a beast. This is our Origin Prime Millennium. This is one of our signature cases as well.
All right, you can't get this case anywhere else. You can only get it at Origin PC. But let's show those cables. All right, so this one is actually a more advanced build because you can see the CPU is actually using a custom cooling unit. Is that Hydro X? That should be Hydro X, right?
Yep,
Yeah, it's Hydro X. Let's go ahead and rotate that. All right, so let's walk through. Actually, we might have to angle it off to the right, kind of like we had the Neuron. There you go, perfect. And we can zoom in with the camera. You can actually go more handheld with this and just walk through the cables. You can go ahead and unmute too. So this is how a normal case would look, right? So the cables would be on the other side, and you'll see that there's those crevices. You can actually have the cables funneled through.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So
Unmute.
let me unplug it. Flip it around.
Unmute, PJ. There
All
you
right.
go.
So our Origin Prime Millennium. It's a little. I need to wipe it off. I mean, I haven't worked on this.
Don't
one
worry
in a minute.
about it. Just
I haven't
we're
worked
gonna
on it
tuck
in a
the
minute. You know,
cables.
this is one of our event systems, but I'm trying to clean it up. We utilized all the Corsair Hydro X IQ for the IQ lighting. So, I mean, you can't really see it too well, but you have your Hydro X CPU block inside here. There's your Hydro X reservoir.
Mm-hmm. But the cables, PJ, the cables.
The cable management.
Yeah, that's
you can
where
also see that I've
we brought
gotten
this
very
up.
precise on everything. Everything is neatly done and tucked down. You can see one of the questions that I was answering over here at the bottom is like, how do I keep the GPU secured? Right here at the bottom, I have it pushed up against the USB 3.1 Type-C connection. So that's leaving the video card to stay elevated. It's not, see how it's not sagging down?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I do that. The cable management on the backside is pretty much self-explanatory. This is your 8-pin.
So that's the CPU.
This is the CPU 8-pin. I hide it behind the back, and then I run it right into the bottom side. This over here is your 24-pin, and this is your GPU. All the cables are ran behind the 360 millimeter reservoir, or radiator that we have over here. So all the majority of the cables that would go inside the case are tucked in back here,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll never see them here.
Yeah.
This case is super clean. No cable is exposed anywhere. And then I get a little crazy with the IQ software, how I ran everything.
Which it looks really clean over here.
Yeah, you got that right there.
Because you also have the Commander Pro, so that's
this
the
is
big.
the Commander
yeah.
Pro. This is your node here at the bottom, and then right here at the top is the RGB hub. Everything, all your fans, everything is numerically synced in 1, 2, 3, and 4. It runs down here to the bottom, and then you got your CPU and your GPU. You got your CPU and your reservoir daisy chained into one. That's how the HydroX sync works together. And then this one over here runs the RGB lights on the case itself. And then the LED switch panel.
I'll scroll down or aim down. There you go.
This one here at the bottom, the USB is powered onto the Commander Pro, which makes it so much easier.
And there you go.
And that's it. It's pretty much
There's
how
your
it is.
wiring.
This is how essentially you will receive a computer from Origin when we build them.
And this
can
is how
also
you should
see,
try
like,
to
when we
aim
build
for your own
anything like
personal
this,
build too.
we take 100% pride in all the cable management. We want it's very important as well. You know, you also have to make sure that, I mean, it doesn't have to be the cleanest, but you want to make sure that you have your cables as secured as possible in the case, because you want to have as much optimum airflow as possible. If you have cables obstructing airflow, you're not going to get optimum performance out of your PC.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much, PJ, for bringing out that system. And that is it. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. We're going to jump out and have a good weekend. And we got another fun little event with the Corsair students. So look forward to talking to you guys very soon. For future streams, I think we have one in a couple weeks, I want to say. And I'm going to try to shoot for some gameplay streams for the future. But yeah, I'm glad you guys tuned in for the 2 streams we did this week. And we will see you next time.
Absolutely. If you guys have any questions, especially any of the interns or something, feel free to you can reach out to myself. I mean, if you want to reach out to Lewis.
And we're going to talk to them very soon.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, don't worry.
All right,
don't worry.
cool, no
That's
problem.
why we're leaving right now.
Oh, all right. All right,
Bye.
Cool. Bye.
Talk
Have
to
a
you
good
in
weekend,
little bit.
everybody.